New Mexico is a land of deserts, mountains, and mysterious skies. But hidden among its rugged terrain are abandoned military bases, forgotten by the government and locals alike. These bases are more than empty buildings. Some say they are alive with strange lights that flicker in the dead of night. Others report hearing footsteps echoing in empty hallways. The wind carries whispers of experiments, lost soldiers, and secrets that were never meant to see the light of day. Visitors have reported seeing shadows move behind broken windows, figures that vanish when approached, doors open on their own, alarms sound without reason. Some who enter these bases never leave. Some return, but they are never the same. Tonight, we explore 25 haunted, abandoned military bases in New Mexico, places where the desert hides more than sand, where the night sky holds unnatural light, and where the past refuses to stay buried. Step carefully. The bases remember every visitor, and some will not let you leave alive. Hello, my friend. I hope you are safe and comfortable tonight, because we are about to step into the shadowed, eerie world of New Mexico's abandoned military bases. Once bustling with soldiers, engineers, and top-secret operations, these bases are now silent, yet far from empty. Visitors have reported hearing footsteps in corridors long abandoned. Strange lights float over hangars and bunkers, moving with no source. Some see figures standing silently in the desert, only to vanish when approached. Doors slam and locks click, though no one is present. The desert wind seems to carry whispers, fragmented conversations from decades past. Some of these bases were sites of testing, experiments, and tragedies that never made headlines. Before we explore these haunted locations, let me ask you, if you were walking through an abandoned military base and saw strange lights moving across the desert, and heard whispers calling your name from dark bunkers, would you investigate the source? Or would you turn and run, hoping whatever watches leave you unharmed? Think carefully. Your choice might determine whether you are just a visitor or the next story the desert tells. May your curiosity guide you safely tonight. And may the abandoned bases show you only what you are ready to see. Desert sun beats down relentlessly by day, casting stark shadows across the empty runways and eroded walls. Visitors approaching the base often feel a sense of overwhelming emptiness, as if the very air carries the weight of decades of abandonment. Inside the hangars, the vast spaces are filled with echoes that seem to linger long after the initial sound has faded. Broken windows allow shafts of light to pierce the darkness, illuminating machinery left to rust and scattered debris that tells of hurried departures. There is a silence that feels unnatural, a stillness that presses against the senses. Yet as night falls, the base takes on a different presence entirely. Strange lights appear above the hangars, floating and weaving through the darkness with patterns no aircraft could replicate. They hover, shift, and sometimes vanish completely, leaving visitors questioning whether they have seen the same movement twice. The lights are neither steady nor predictable, yet they maintain a quiet intensity that draws attention to the open skies above the deserted structures. Many describe the patterns as deliberate, almost as if the base itself is under observation by something unseen. Alongside the visual phenomena, auditory experiences heighten the sense of the base's lingering presence. Footsteps echo across empty corridors, precise and deliberate, moving as if soldiers still patrol the area. Faint radio chatter can be heard from time to time, disjointed and fragmented, carrying the sense of communication from another era. These occurrences are never threatening, but they create an unsettling awareness that the base remembers, that history continues to play out in subtle ways beyond the reach of the living. The architecture of the base amplifies these experiences. Long hallways, vast hangars, and open courtyards create spaces where sound carries in strange, distorted ways. Shadows seem to shift independently of light, stretching across walls or pooling in corners where none should form. Objects left behind, tools, desks, and chairs, often appear slightly altered when observed later, suggesting movement by unseen hands. The base feels alive in a quiet, deliberate manner, as though every element is part of a larger, hidden rhythm. Windows and broken walls frame the desert outside, revealing vast stretches of sand and rock that seem endless under the moonlight. The wind moves in patterns that produce whispers through metal structures, and the temperature shifts suddenly, carrying cold pockets that have no clear source. Observers sometimes report seeing figures in the distance, blurred silhouettes that move just beyond recognition before vanishing. The line between reality and perception blurs, leaving visitors uncertain of what is natural and what belongs to the history that haunts the site. The base's past is palpable in every detail. Rusted signage, peeling paint, and scattered equipment hint at a time of urgency and human presence. Visitors report the sensation of being watched, as if the memories of those who once occupied the base remain embedded in the concrete and metal. Footsteps grow louder when attention is focused elsewhere. Shadows stretch in directions that defy expectation, and the faint hum of machinery seems to echo from the past. The combination of historical resonance and unexplained phenomena creates an atmosphere both immersive and disquieting. Night at Desert Shadow's base is when the experiences intensify. The lights above the hangars drift in mesmerizing patterns, shifting from one point to another with no visible propulsion. Shadows stretch along walls and hangar doors, forming shapes that appear momentarily human before fading. Guests describe a sense of pressure, a weight that seems to follow them through corridors and open spaces. The auditory effects combine with the visual, creating a fully enveloping sensation that the base is inhabited by echoes of its former occupants. Visitors often leave the base changed, carrying memories of lights that defy logic, footsteps that trace their movements, and whispers that drift along corridors. The sense of being observed, whether by history, memory, or something else entirely, lingers long after departure. Desert Shadow's base is more than abandoned structures in the middle of the desert. It is a location where the past meets the present, where human history imprints itself upon the environment, and where subtle, persistent phenomena create an unforgettable experience for those who venture into its silent expanse. Every visit to the base is unique. No two nights are the same, and no single observer captures the full extent of the activity. Where perception is heightened and ordinary understanding is challenged. A place where the desert holds secrets that refuse to remain buried. Those who leave carry with them the echoes of footsteps, glimpses of lights, and the sensation of figures that move beyond sight. Desert Shadow's base endures as a monument to both human history and the mysteries that linger long after abandonment, offering a haunting yet compelling narrative that captivates the imagination and evokes a sense of awe and curiosity that cannot easily be forgotten. Phantom hangars lie scattered across a vast desert, their steel frames rising silently against the horizon. The sun beats down during the day, casting sharp shadows across the tarmac. Yet the true character of the airfield emerges at night. Darkness transforms the space, stretching shadows and revealing an atmosphere that feels both abandoned and strangely alive. The hangars themselves are imposing. Rows of metal structures stand empty, doors often hanging slightly ajar, revealing interiors that have not seen activity in decades. Inside, the echo of footsteps seems impossible, yet guests and explorers report hearing movement, soft and deliberate, as if someone walks through the empty space with purpose. The sound carries across the concrete floors, bouncing off walls and creating the sense that the hangars are aware of every motion. Figures sometimes appear on the tarmac, outlined briefly against the moonlight. They are indistinct at first, shapes moving with the precision of trained pilots. Witnesses describe seeing them walk steadily, checking invisible controls or pacing along the edges of runways, only to vanish as if swallowed by the desert night. The presence is subtle yet unmistakable, a lingering impression of order and discipline that no living visitor can replicate. The desert wind adds another layer of mystery. It whirls across the airfield, carrying a faint scent of oil and metal, and sometimes it seems to carry whispered orders, only to find the words dissolve instantly, leaving no trace. The wind becomes a medium, connecting the past to the present, allowing fragments of memory to reach the living, though always fleeting and ephemeral. Exploring the hangars reveals details that reinforce the sensation of occupancy. Abandoned tools lie scattered, dusty flight manuals rest on tables, and rusted equipment hints at a time when the airfield was a hub of constant activity. Yet nothing moves naturally, and the air itself seems to hum with latent energy, as though the hangars remember every step, every command, and every mission once carried out upon their tarmac. Evening transforms the desert and the hangars. Shadows grow longer, and the steel structures take on a metallic sheen under the moonlight. The air is cool and dry, carrying the soft, unsettling sound of distant echoes. Footsteps are heard again, sometimes from within the hangars, sometimes from the open tarmac, and always with precision of those trained to walk in unison. The effect is hypnotic, drawing attention and creating an awareness that every corner of the airfield is connected to something unseen. Some nights, guests report more distinct phenomena. Figures appear fully formed in the glow of distant lights, standing at the edge of hangars or near old aircraft frames. Their uniforms suggest eras long past, their posture rigid and attentive. Observers note movements that are precise yet fleeting, and always accompanied by a heightened sense of presence that lingers even after the figures vanish. Their disappearance leaves behind an unsettling feeling that something is watched and is still watching. The desert amplifies these experiences. Its vast openness allows sound and shadow to travel, shaping perception and distorting distance. The air carries subtle noises of soft clanks, muted footsteps, the faint buzz of an unseen engine. Guests walking the perimeter often feel guided, as if the hangars themselves direct attention to points of interest, emphasizing the areas where memory and observation intersect most strongly. Inside the hangars, details suggest lives once lived in meticulous routine. Flight plans remain partially intact, chairs positioned just so, and maintenance areas appear used but untouched. Guests report sudden changes in temperature, small breezes that move against the natural flow of air, and the subtle sensation of being observed from multiple angles. These occurrences are never aggressive but persistent, reminding visitors that the airfield retains awareness of both the living and those who came before. The airfield's history echoes through every structure. Decades ago, it thrived with activity, a hub for pilots, engineers, and support crews. Today, those echoes remain in the form of fleeting glimpses, phantom footsteps, and whispered commands. Guests sense the meticulous order of past occupants, an energy bound to the hangars and tarmac, guiding attention and creating a continuous dialogue between the present and history. As night deepens, the phenomena intensify. Shadows move along hangar walls, figures appear on runways, and the desert wind carries faint commands. Guests are drawn to notice subtle changes in perception, attuned to every creak of metal, every distant thump, and every whisper of the wind. The experience is immersive, creating a sense of walking alongside history, where the present is intertwined with memory in ways that feel both real and intangible. Where the present is intertwined with memory in ways that feel both real and intangible. The experience is immersive, creating a sense of walking alongside history, where the present is intertwined with memory in ways that feel both real and intangible. By dawn, the desert light softens, shadows retreat, and the hangars appear calm once more. Yet the impressions of the night linger. Footsteps echo in memory. Figures remain etched in thought, and whispered commands fade only slowly. Phantom hangars endure, a space where history lives, where the desert wind carries voices of the past, and where the presence of unseen pilots and attentive hangars continues to engage those who dare to explore its quiet expanse. Echo Ridge Bunker sits partially buried in sand at the edge of a remote desert ridge. Its concrete walls rise at angles, half hidden beneath drifting dunes, giving it the appearance of a forgotten relic from another era. The landscape around it is silent, vast, and unforgiving, stretching endlessly with only the wind to break its emptiness. Visitors feel a subtle tension the moment they approach, as if the bunker itself is aware of intrusions into its space. The entrance is narrow and imposing. Heavy metal doors remain slightly rusted, yet they seem resistant to decay, standing as guardians of the darkness within. Stepping inside, The air feels cooler, heavier, and charged with unfamiliar energy. Shadows stretch unnaturally along the corridors, and every step echoes as if the walls themselves are listening. Strange lights are sometimes seen moving through the halls. They shift and pulse, appearing at the edge of vision, and vanish when looked at directly. Their movement is deliberate, almost intelligent, following paths that seem random yet purposeful. Visitors have reported that the lights flicker in synchronization with footsteps or distant sounds, as though the bunker communicates in patterns that are barely perceptible. Doors open without explanation. Steel panels swing inward and outward with a low groan. Yet when examined, no mechanism appears to have triggered them. The sound is startling in the silence, amplifying the sense of being watched. Footsteps echo through the hallways, heavy and deliberate, but investigations reveal empty corridors, amplifying the unnerving impression that the bunker holds memories or presences that refuse to remain hidden. Alarms occasionally sound, shrill and unyielding, yet no source can be found. The sound reverberates through corridors, bouncing off concrete walls, creating a resonance that fills the entire structure. Guests report the alarms coinciding with strange lights or shifting shadows, heightening the sense that the bunker reacts to movement, awareness, or intrusion. These occurrences are fleeting but leave an indelible impression. The interior is a labyrinth of narrow passages, control rooms, and storage chambers. Dust settles thickly on surfaces, disturbed only by occasional shifts that suggest previous activity or lingering energy. Monitors remain dark, yet some flicker intermittently, casting brief illumination on walls where shadows seem to move independently. Every corridor feels alive, resonating with sound that cannot be traced to a source. Visitors describe a sensation of being followed, an awareness of presence just beyond sight. It is subtle at first, a fleeting sense of eyes on the back of the neck, then more insistent as they navigate the bunker. The combination of echoing footsteps, shifting lights, and unexplained sounds creates a tension that is both compelling and unnerving. Control rooms are particularly captivating. Consoles remain in place as if awaiting use, buttons and levers untouched for decades. Yet screens flicker or glow faintly, displaying shapes or movements that do not correlate with physical presence. Guests have reported seeing vague human forms reflected in polished surfaces, figures standing silently before vanishing without trace. The experience blurs the line between perception and reality. Storage chambers are equally mysterious. Rows of metal cabinets and crates are meticulously arranged, yet objects occasionally appear displaced. Small items are found where they were not previously, or doors left slightly ajar that were closed moments before. The changes are subtle but noticeable, reinforcing the impression that the bunker is not inert, that it holds awareness or memory in ways that are intangible yet undeniable. The air carries a persistent hum, a low vibration that seems to emanate from the structure itself. Some describe it as a mechanical resonance, others as a subtle voice or warning. It is not constant but arises unpredictably, often accompanying the movement of lights, shadows, or footsteps. Guests are compelled to listen, aware that the sound is part of the bunker's language, a code that can only be felt and intuited. Corridors bend and intersect, creating a labyrinthine interior that amplifies the feeling of isolation. Even in daylight, shadows seem to gather and stretch unnaturally. The bunker is an interplay of light and darkness, sound and silence, movement and stillness. Visitors become acutely aware of how small their presence is within this space, and how every step, every motion, every breath is magnified. Exploration demands focus. Every detail matters, from the subtle tilt of a panel to the faint flicker of light in the corner of a room. From the subtle tilt of a panel to the faint flicker of light in the corner of a room. Footsteps are amplified, shadows lengthen and retract, and the atmosphere thickens with the sensation that the bunker is observing and responding. Each discovery adds to the sense of being in a place both abandoned and alive, a space where memory, energy, and the unexplained converge. The desert outside is quiet, unbroken by anything other than the wind and shifting sands. This silence contrasts sharply with the activity within the bunker, reinforcing its isolation and otherworldly presence. As night falls, the experience intensifies. Flickering lights illuminate passages briefly. Doors may swing open with no force, and distant alarms echo through empty halls. Footsteps seem to follow through the darkness, and shapes can be glimpsed at the periphery of vision, vanishing when confronted directly. The bunker becomes a stage for perception and anticipation, drawing visitors into a space where ordinary rules no longer fully apply. Those who leave Echo Ridge Bunker carry memories that linger. The sensation of unseen presence, shifting lights, unexplained sounds, and objects moving defy conventional understanding. It is an experience that challenges perception, leaving a lasting awareness of a place alive in subtle, insistent ways. Echo Ridge Bunker is more than concrete and metal. It is a repository of energy, a vessel for echoes and patterns that exist beyond ordinary comprehension. Footsteps, lights, alarms, and shadows interact with those who enter, creating an environment that is responsive, enigmatic, and unforgettable. Even after visitors depart, the bunker remains. Sand drifts along its exterior, wind sculpts the surrounding ridges, and shadows settle in corners and corridors. Yet inside, lights may still pulse, doors may remain ajar, and the faint echo of footsteps or alarms lingers. Echo Ridge Bunker endures as a place of observation and memory, waiting silently for the next visitor to step across its threshold and encounter the subtle, haunting presence that has persisted through time. Silver Mesa Outpost rises abruptly from the desert ridges, a solitary cluster of concrete and metal structures that once served as a testing ground for communications equipment. The base is now abandoned, its corridors silent, and the desert wind sweeps across empty observation decks and weathered antennas. The landscape around the outpost stretches endlessly, a mixture of jagged ridges and flat mesas, bathed in heat by day and plunged into cold shadows by night. Visitors describe a palpable sense of isolation, as though the outpost exists outside conventional time and space. The desert itself contributes to the enigmatic presence of Silver Mesa. Sunsets cast long, angular shadows across the ridges, and the shifting sands carry the sound of wind in unpredictable ways. At night, the darkness becomes dense and alive, punctuated by the faint glimmer of stars and the occasional flicker of strange lights above the mesas. These lights appear to move in impossible patterns, darting and hovering in ways that defy natural explanation. Witnesses often report an uneasy fascination, drawn to watch yet hesitant to approach. Inside the outpost, the atmosphere is heavy with stillness and history. Long corridors stretch under dim, flickering lights, their walls lined with equipment left as it was decades ago. Shadows move along the walls, stretching and bending even when rooms are empty. The effect is subtle yet persistent, creating the impression that the space itself observes and responds to the presence of visitors. The impression that the space itself observes and responds to the presence of visitors. The technical purpose of Silver Mesa Outpost seems almost irrelevant in the face of these phenomena. The remnants of radio equipment, testing rooms, and observation decks all contribute to a sense of technological isolation. Visitors report feeling a constant pull towards certain areas, drawn by subtle cues in light, shadow, or sound. The interplay of human construction and a vast, open desert produces an environment where perception is heightened and ordinary expectations of space and movement are challenged. Flickering lights outside the outpost often take on forms and trajectories that defy logic. They may hover above ridges for minutes, split into multiple points of illumination, or disappear abruptly into the desert darkness. Some describe movements that mimic natural phenomena, yet their patterns are too precise, too deliberate to be explained by wind or atmospheric conditions alone. Observers feel a quiet tension, an awareness that the desert holds secrets far beyond the physical structures of the outpost. Within the rooms of Silver Mesa, shadows behave unpredictably. They stretch across walls, fold into corners, or appear to move independently of any source. The phenomenon is subtle and disorienting, creating an immersive experience that challenges perception. In combination with the sounds of the desert wind, the outpost becomes a space where memory, observation, and imagination converge. In combination with the sounds of the desert wind, the outpost becomes a space where memory, observation, and imagination converge. The open expanse of the desert adds a further layer to the experience. Sand dunes shift underfoot, and ridges create hidden hollows that amplify sound and obscure movement. The wind carries echoes of distant footsteps or the faint hum of abandoned equipment, making visitors question whether what they perceive is real or imagined. Even the light of the moon transforms the environment, casting long shadows that seem to stretch across impossible distances and blur the line between structure and landscape, while exploring both interior and exterior spaces. An occasional glimmer of light on distant ridges draws attention. The combination of isolation, environmental conditions, and unexplained phenomena, where every sound, every flicker of light, becomes significant, creating a narrative felt rather than spoken. Time itself seems altered at Silver Mesa Outpost. Minutes stretch and contract, and the vast landscape fosters a sensation of timelessness. Observers describe moments of stillness punctuated by flickering lights, shifting shadows, or subtle movements in otherwise empty rooms. The physical and psychological space of the outpost blends with the desert, producing an environment where ordinary expectations are suspended and curiosity is amplified. Even during daylight hours, the outpost maintains a mysterious quality. Sunlight casts long, angular shadows along walls and equipment, highlighting dust particles and creating shifting patterns that appear to move. Doors, corridors, and observation decks seem slightly altered with each return visit, as if the environment subtly responds to attention and movement. Shadows lengthen or contract in ways that challenge perception, adding to the sense that Silver Mesa possesses an awareness beyond ordinary understanding. The combination of architecture, desert expanse, and unexplained phenomena creates an immersive experience. Visitors feel a constant tension between curiosity and caution, drawn toward flickering lights and shadows, while maintaining an acute awareness of the unknown. Footsteps echo across concrete floors and desert sand alike. Whispers of wind or memory seem to carry messages, and the outpost continues to radiate a quiet presence that lingers long after departure. Silver Mesa Outpost endures as a location of isolation, mystery, and subtle phenomena. Shadows shift along walls, flickering lights traverse the ridges, and the desert stretches endlessly beyond the structures. Every element contributes to an atmosphere of observation, presence, and engagement, where visitors are immersed in a story woven from environment, perception, and subtle energy. The desert wind sweeps across ridges. Shadows move silently along walls, and lights continue their impossible trajectories above the mesas, and challenging perception, heightening awareness, and leaving lasting impressions. Visitors depart with fragments of experience that linger, a quiet reminder that some locations hold layers of history and presence that cannot be fully explained or forgotten. Ghost Flight Airfield sits isolated in a barren landscape, where cracked runways stretch endlessly under a pale sky. The remnants of hangars lean precariously, their metal skeletons twisted by decades of neglect. Nature has begun reclaiming the area, weeds pushing through concrete fissures, and sand drifting across tarmac, yet the site retains the unmistakable aura of activity, as if the air itself remembers the planes that once roared across these runways. Visitors often arrive to a silence that feels alive, heavy with anticipation. The wind moves through broken hangars, carrying faint echoes that resemble distant engines or voices long forgotten. Shadows gather in corners and beneath the skeletal remains of control towers, and the dim light of dusk or moon casts the structures in shapes that appear momentarily human or mechanical. Every element of the airfield seems charged with residual energy, leaving observers unsettled and intrigued. Along the main runway, witnesses have reported seeing the silhouettes of aircraft that no longer exist. These forms glide across the cracked tarmac with impossible precision, sometimes disappearing as quickly as they appear. They leave no footprints or traces, yet the memory of their movement lingers. The air seems to hum with the quiet energy of flight long past. The experience creates a sense of being caught between eras, where the present brushes against echoes of history that refuse to fade. Inside the hangars, the atmosphere is dense with the weight of memory. Rusted tools and scattered equipment suggest hurried abandonment, while shadows shift in ways that defy explanation. These auditory experiences are complemented by the occasional flicker of lights along the hangar walls, or the reflection of movement in broken glass panels. These are complemented by the occasional flicker of lights along the hangar walls or the reflection of movement in broken glass panels. Each sound, each movement, reinforces a feeling that the airfield retains more than just its physical structure reset, holds the presence of those who once worked, repaired, and commanded the planes that once dominated the skies. The control tower stands as the focal point of these experiences. From its elevated perch, the surrounding airfield stretches in every direction, yet the tower itself seems to amplify the sensations of observation. Shadows twist along the staircase and landing platforms, and faint murmurs echo through the metal and concrete framework. Some visitors feel as though they are being followed by unseen personnel, footsteps keeping pace from above even as the visitor moves below. The sense of being watched is persistent and subtle, never threatening but impossible to ignore. Runways and taxiways appear longer under moonlight, stretching into the horizon and fading into the darkness. The cracked surface catches the glow of distant lights or the pale reflection of the moon. Observers sometimes catch glimpses of winged forms moving across these surfaces, shadows of planes imagined or remembered by the space itself. The interplay of light, shadow, and residual energy creates a surreal experience, blending history with perception and leaving visitors uncertain of what is real. The surrounding environment adds to the haunting atmosphere. Deserted fields, overgrown fences, and distant hills provide a sense of isolation and vulnerability. Winds carry faint metallic sounds, as though machinery is stirring somewhere beyond reach. At times, radio static or faint chatter drifts across the airwaves, indistinct and fragmented, echoing communication from decades ago. These subtle cues reinforce the feeling that Ghost Flight Airfield remains inhabited, not by the living, but by memories and energies that refuse to dissipate. Nightfall intensifies the presence within the airfield. Shadows stretch across the runways, and the silhouettes of aircraft appear more defined, almost tangible. The sound of engines, footsteps, and distant voices grows sharper, yet they remain elusive, vanishing when directly observed. Guests often experience moments of vertigo or disorientation, as if the boundaries between past and present are dissolving. The airfield becomes a space where history and perception merge, creating an immersive experience that engages all senses. Every visitor leaves with a lasting impression of the airfield's haunting energy. The cracked runways, empty hangars, and skeletal towers serve as tangible reminders of human ambition and abandonment, while the fleeting planes, phantom sounds, and shifting shadows provide a glimpse into the persistence of memory and presence. Ghost Flight Airfield is more than an abandoned city. It is a living archive of sound, movement, and observation, a place where the past refuses to remain silent, and the present becomes charged with unseen activity. The airfield endures as a testament to the subtle ways history persists in space. Footsteps that echo, engines that roar without cause, and silhouettes that glide across cracked tarmac, create an environment both captivating and eerie. Visitors become part of this ongoing presence, their awareness heightened by the interactions between memory, architecture, and the mysterious forces that linger, where the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary, and the echoes of aviation history continue to haunt every corner of its deserted expanse. Crimson Canyon Base rests deep within the rugged walls of a remote canyon, its presence almost hidden among jagged cliffs and rocky outcrops. The terrain isolates it completely, and surrounding cliffs block sight lines from miles away, creating an air of secrecy. During the day, the base seems quiet and deserted, a collection of concrete and metal structures carved into the canyon floor. Shadows stretch across the walls as sunlight filters down, illuminating hallways and pathways in sharp, angular patterns. illuminating hallways and pathways in sharp, angular patterns. At night, the base takes on a different character. Red and green lights hover in the sky, moving slowly or remaining suspended in eerie formations. Their origin is often debated, yet the lights leave no trace when examined, disappearing as silently as they appeared. Observers report a sense of anticipation, as if the canyon itself holds its breath while the lights drift through the night. The atmosphere becomes charged, a mixture of awe and unease that permeates the base and its surroundings. Inside the base, corridors stretch in long, narrow lines, the walls lined with muted panels and industrial lighting. Figures are sometimes seen walking along these passageways, moving deliberately and silently. Guests or personnel who attempt to approach them find nothing, as if the forms vanish the moment they are noticed. The experience creates a tension that lingers, a feeling of being observed and yet unable to connect with the entities that roam the halls. The architecture of Crimson Canyon Base contributes to its mysterious nature. Rooms are functional, yet details suggest careful planning and precision. Equipment rests as if recently used, floors carry faint echoes, and doors occasionally shift without explanation. Even when completely unoccupied, the base feels alive. With subtle activity, a quiet energy that moves in rhythm with unseen footsteps and faint mechanical hums. The canyon itself enhances the base's enigmatic presence. Wind moves through crevices and passages, creating whispers that seem to travel from room to room. The echoes are often mistaken for voices, and the sound carries with clarity in certain corridors. Visitors often describe a sensation of being watched from multiple angles, a quiet awareness that exists beyond human perception. Evenings heighten the sense of isolation. The lights from the base reflect on the rocky walls, casting long shadows that shift unpredictably with the contours of the canyon. Figures may appear momentarily at windows or down hallways, their movements deliberate yet fleeting. Every sound is heightened by the stillness of the canyon, reinforcing the impression that the base and its surroundings are alive with memory and attention. Doors click or sway without cause. Every sound is heightened by the stillness of the canyon, reinforcing the impression that the base and its surroundings are alive with memory and attention. Some visitors report more subtle phenomena. Rooms sometimes hold traces of movement that vanish upon inspection. Objects appear slightly displaced, chairs angled differently, or equipment showing signs of recent use. The changes are never violent, but they create the persistent impression that the base observes every step, every glance, every pause. The effect is cumulative, weaving a sensation of continuous interaction between observer and environment. The hovering lights outside often coincide with sightings inside. Guests describe looking up to see the red and green glows reflected through windows, then noticing a figure in the corridor that disappears as the gaze shifts. The interplay between exterior and interior creates a connection that is impossible to ignore. The canyon, the base, and the hovering lights form a cohesive experience, blending natural isolation with phenomena that challenge conventional explanation. Sound within the base adds to the atmosphere. Faint humming echoes through ventilation shafts. Metallic creaks punctuate silent hallways, and the occasional soft thump resonates in spaces that appear empty. These noises reinforce the sense of presence, guiding attention to details that might otherwise go unnoticed. Observers find themselves attuned to subtle cues, aware of shifts in temperature, light, and sound, that seem to respond to movement and focus. 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 History seems embedded in every structure of Crimson Canyon Base. Built with precision and secrecy, it was intended for operational efficiency and protection from the outside world. Yet the layers of human activity leave traces that persist in unusual ways. Visitors consistently report experiences that suggest memory and awareness are preserved within the walls, corridors, and rooms, creating a space where past and present coexist in subtle, persistent forms. The canyon amplifies perception, shaping every encounter. Shadows stretch unnaturally along walls. Reflections in metallic surfaces reveal fleeting forms. and the red and green lights above interact with perception, creating patterns that are difficult to trace or explain. Guests report the sensation of being guided through the base, drawn to specific points or corridors without conscious decision, as though the environment itself anticipates movement. As night deepens, the base appears most active. Figures glide along hallways. Lights hover and shift in patterns. Faint whispers seem carried from room to room. The experience is immersive, compelling visitors to acknowledge the presence of something beyond ordinary observation. Each encounter is subtle yet persistent, leaving an impression that remains long after the base appears quiet once more. By morning, the canyon light softens, shadows retreat, and the base returns to apparent stillness. Yet the memory of figures, footsteps, whispers, and hovering lights endures. Visitors leave carrying impressions that are vivid and unshakable, a reminder that the canyon, the base, and the unseen watchers continue to coexist in quiet, persistent vigilance. Sandstorm Barracks sits on a windswept plain, a skeletal reminder of its past. Once a training ground for soldiers, it now lies abandoned, its buildings weathered and cracked. Sand creeping along hallways and into every corner. The wind moves constantly across the grounds, carrying whispers that seem to echo from the past. Every step taken within the barracks feels heavy, as if the air itself is aware of every motion. The exterior is a study in decay and endurance. Walls stand cracked and crumbling, yet some structures remain upright, defying the relentless desert winds. Doors hang from rusted hinges, swaying slightly with gusts, and windows are fractured or missing altogether, giving glimpses into interiors where shadows gather. Visitors often report feeling watched, a subtle awareness that the barracks are not empty despite appearances. Inside, shadows seem to move along walls. Light filtering through shattered windows casts shapes that flicker and shift, creating the impression of figures pacing silently. The movement is often peripheral, vanishing when observers attempt to focus, yet leaving the unmistakable feeling that someone or something is present. Every room carries echoes of footsteps, distant and deliberate, amplifying the sensation of unseen company. The barracks' main hallways are long and narrow, lined with remnants of past activity. Sand covers the floors in thin, drifting layers, softening the sound of movement, yet revealing the faintest impressions of steps that appear and disappear. Visitors speak of hearing commands called out, laughter echoing strangely, and cries that seem to emanate from empty rooms. The sounds are fragmented and elusive, blending with the natural rhythm of wind and the subtle groan of the buildings. Dormitories are particularly haunting. Rows of rusted bed frames sit amid dust and sand. Mattresses long gone or disintegrated. The air carries a cold weight, and some guests report feeling the touch of unseen hands brushing past, as if soldiers from long ago remain vigilant in their routine. Doors open and close without cause. Drawers shift slightly, and whispers drift through corridors, repeating fragments of orders, warnings, or casual conversation from decades past. The training grounds are equally alive with spectral echoes. Sand dunes cover old obstacle courses, leaving only traces of bars, ropes, and walls once used for drills. The wind interacts with these structures in uncanny ways, producing sound that mimic marching, shouting, or even distant gunfire. Observers often pause, unsure whether the sound are natural or supernatural, caught between the deserter-esque moods and the lingering memory of human activity. Armories and storage areas feel dense with history. Rusted lockers remain in rows, some slightly ajar, revealing empty spaces where equipment once rested. Guests report hearing footsteps on metal grates above or below, or the clatter of objects moving without explanation. The subtle changes create the impression that the bearers are aware of their presence, responding in measured, almost deliberate ways. In the mess halls, sand drifts across tables and benches. Shadows stretch across walls and ceilings, forming shapes that resemble soldiers at rest, talking quietly or moving with purpose. Visitors have reported hearing the faint clinking of dishes, laughter, or conversations carried on the wind, disappearing when attention is focused. It is a place suspended in time, where echoes of life and activity continue to linger long after the last soldiers departed. Corridors and staircases amplify every sound. Footsteps, whispers, the distant groan of doors, or even the rustle of shifting sand echo through empty spaces, creating a sensory environment that is both immersive and unsettling, guarding fragments of the past in silence. The exterior environment enhances the sense of isolation. Winds whip across open areas, carrying sand and stirring dust along abandoned training fields. Shadows twist along walls and dunes, forming shapes that appear almost human. Visitors often pause, sensing movement at the periphery of vision, and yet when observed, the shapes vanish into the desert light. The barracks and its surrounding landscape merge into a single entity, alive with memory, observation, and subtle interaction. Nightfall transforms Sandstorm Barracks into a heightened realm of perception. Moonlight casts fractured patterns across walls and floors, shadows deepen, and the wind carries voices more distinctly. Commands, laughter, and cries echo through empty rooms and across open courtyards, creating an immersive experience where the ordinary and the spectral merge. Guests report the sensation of being followed through hallways, footsteps matching their own pace, then vanishing suddenly in a quiet moment. Even in the deepest hours, the barracks hold the visitor's attention. Every sound is amplified, every shadow seems deliberate, and every movement is observed. The combination of sand, wind, decay, and echoes creates an environment where the past feels present. Every action is imbued with significance. Visitors leave with lasting impressions, haunted by the subtle interplay of memory, perception, and the persistent presence of unseen watchers. Sandstorm Barracks is more than a structure of stone and metal. It is a repository of echoes, a space where history continues to breathe, where shadows of the past move among the present, and where wind and sand carry whispers of life long gone. Footsteps, voices, and shifting shadows create a living narrative, drawing visitors into an experience that is immersive, compelling, and unforgettable. Even after guests depart, the barracks remain. Sand drifts along walls and floors. The wind continues its ceaseless passage across open fields, and shadows settle in corners and stairwells. The whispers, faint footsteps, and echoes of commands persist, lingering in the mind of anyone who has ventured into this haunting relic, awaiting those willing to explore its depths and experience the quiet, persistent presence that defines its ghostly essence. Mirage Range stretches across the horizon like a mirage itself, a vast expanse of desert where dunes rise and fall in endless rhythm. The sun beats down during the day, creating waves of heat that warp the landscape and distort perception. Travelers describe the area as beautiful yet unsettling, a place where distance and scale shift unexpectedly, and the ordinary rules of sight and judgment seem suspended. Shadows stretch in unusual directions, and the desert plays subtle tricks on the mind, leaving visitors questioning what is real and what is illusion. Among the dunes, abandoned vehicles rest half buried in sand, remnants of journeys long forgotten. These relics catch the eye at odd angles, their rusting metal glinting under the sun or moonlight. Some witnesses report seeing ghostly figures moving among them, fleeting silhouettes that vanish when approached. The figures appear human in shape, yet lack any tangible presence, creating an eerie contrast against the stark, open desert. Each encounter leaves a lingering impression, a sense that the land itself remembers the lives that have passed through it. At night, Mirage Range transforms. The desert cools rapidly, and the once distorting heat waves give way to an expansive clarity. Yet the area feels heavier, charged with anticipation. Lights flash across the dunes, distant and seemingly without origin. They move in ways that defy logic, flickering along ridges, hovering above valleys, or darting between peaks. Observers describe the lights as both mesmerizing and disorienting, pulling attention outward while revealing little about their nature or source. The phenomenon seems to exist beyond the ordinary, a spectacle of the unknown in a landscape already filled with uncertainty. The environment itself contributes to the sense of otherworldliness. Shifting sands alter the terrain subtly, erasing footprints or creating new formations overnight. The wind carries sound in unpredictable ways, echoing distant movements or mimicking the steps of unseen travelers. Visitors notice these sounds, sometimes mistaken for human activity, only to realize that the desert remains empty and silent. These auditory illusions heighten tension and sharpen awareness, drawing observers deeper into the interplay between perception and reality. Abandoned vehicles scattered across the dunes serve as markers of human presence and absence. They are both familiar and alien, artifacts of lives once active yet now silent. Ghostly figures often appear near them, translucent forms that move slowly or pause as if observing the visitor. The phenomenon is fleeting, with figures dissolving into the desert haze before direct contact can be made. This ephemeral quality amplifies the sense that Mirage Range exists in the space between worlds, a desert of memory and mirage where ordinary logic gives way to heightened perception. The desert at dawn and dusk provides further layers of intrigue. Shadows stretch across dunes and vehicles, sometimes creating the illusion of movement where none exists. The shifting angle of light enhances textures and colors, revealing shapes and contours that change with each moment. Visitors find themselves drawn to investigate, yet the more they observe, the more the landscape seems to shift and recede. Every glance offers new patterns, new possibilities, and the ever-present sense that the desert is aware and responsive in subtle, imperceptible ways. Sounds are as much a part of the experience as sight. The whisper of wind against sand, the faint clatter of metal in abandoned vehicles, and the occasional distant echo of movement create a symphony of uncertainty. Observers report footsteps that match their own, but when they turn, the dunes remain empty. Whispers seem to drift across ridges and valleys, incomprehensible yet compelling, drawing attention and heightening the feeling that the desert is alive with presence. Nightfall magnifies these effects. The darkness of Mirage Range is profound, broken only by the stars above and the occasional flash of unexplainable light. Shadows deepen along dunes and vehicles, appearing to move independently of any light source. The interplay of shadow and illumination makes familiar objects seem alien, and the ghostly figures that appear during daylight take on an intensified, spectral quality. Each movement, each flicker of light, seems orchestrated to draw attention, yet resist comprehension. Mirage Range also challenges perception of distance and scale. Dunes appear to shift subtly when observed from different angles, and ridges that seem close in daylight seem impossibly distant at night. This instability in the landscape heightens the sense of disorientation, making visitors aware of their own senses and the possibility that reality in the desert is fluid. The combination of visual distortion, ghostly figures, and strange lights creates a layered narrative that engages curiosity while fostering a quiet tension. Despite the eerie phenomena, the desert possesses a stark beauty. Its ridges, valleys, and open skies are breathtaking, framed by the subtle movement of shadows and the occasional play of light. Visitors are drawn into this beauty, yet remain acutely aware of its hidden complexities and mysteries. Each step across the dunes is both exploration and observation, a journey through a landscape that is simultaneously real and illusory. Mirage Range endures as a space of perception and enigma. Ghostly figures, flickering lights, and shifting shadows create an environment where visitors experience a heightened sense of awareness and wonder. The desert plays its subtle games, revealing only fragments of truth and leaving much to the imagination. Every sight, sound, and movement contributes to an immersive story, one that lingers long after leaving the sands behind. In the vast openness of Mirage Range, the ordinary rules of observation and expectation are suspended. Shadows stretch and move, lights flash and vanish, and ghostly figures trace the edges of perception. Visitors leave carrying impressions of a landscape that is both beautiful and unsettling, a desert of memory, illusion, and mystery, where every encounter feels cinematic and alive. The desert itself becomes a silent narrator, weaving a continuous story of presence, perception, and enigma. Silent Watchtower rises from the desert like a sentinel of forgotten times. Its weathered structure stretches skyward, casting long shadows across sand and stone. From a distance, the tower appears uninhabited, yet its presence dominates the surrounding landscape. Travelers often pause to take in the sight, sensing an odd tension in the air, as if the tower itself observes every movement across the barren terrain. Approaching the base, visitors notice the ruins of what was once a sturdy staircase. With its splintered, metal railings rusted, and large sections have long collapsed, leaving only jagged remnants of the original climb. Despite this, some claim to hear footsteps ascending the broken stairs. The sound is precise and deliberate, echoing through the tower and carrying a weight that suggests summonia or something moves with intent. Yet, when eyes search the area, there is no one to be found. Windows along the tower's height offer glimpses of the sky and desert beyond. Observers often report seeing figures peering from these openings, silhouettes that vanish when approached or when their presence is acknowledged. The forms are fleeting, sometimes blurred by the heat or wind, yet they leave an unmistakable impression of being watched. Shadows linger where none should exist, and the play of light across the tower's surfaces creates the illusion of movement, making the structure feel alive in subtle, unnerving ways. Inside the tower, the remnants of past occupants are still evident. Rusted railings, broken planks, and remnants of equipment hint at a history of vigilance and purpose. The air carries a faint scent of aged wood and dust, mixed with the dryness of surrounding desert. Sounds travel in unusual ways to the hollow spaces, creating echoes that confuse and disorient. A footstep might appear from one direction, only to resolve from another, heightening the impression that the tower itself holds a memory of movement. The tower's exterior tells a story as well. Each layer of peeling paint, each crack in the concrete, and each twisted bolt speaks of decades exposed to sun, wind, and sandstorms. Visitors often comment on the way shadows stretch along the tower's walls, merging with the landscape to form shapes that resemble watchful figures. The desert around the tower seems unusually quiet, amplifying the sensation of presence within the tower. The juxtaposition of isolation and observation creates a feeling that the place is not empty, but subtly, persistently alive. As night falls, the tower takes on a different character. The setting sun casts deep shadows, and the desert cools rapidly. Visitors report hearing soft murmurs carried on the wind, as though conversations long ended still echo across the sands. Footsteps grow more distinct, sometimes climbing stairs that no longer exist. The occasional creak of wood or rattle of metal adds the sensation that unseen visitors roam the tower. Lights from distant settlements or stars above provide fleeting clarity, yet the darkness quickly returns. Emphasizing the tower's haunting presence. From the tower's summit, the view is expansive and unbroken. Desert dunes roll into the horizon, punctuated only by rocks and sparse vegetation. Yet even in this openness, a sense of scrutiny remains. Some describe a feeling of eyes following them, not from the ground, but from the tower itself. This sensation of constant observation pervades every corner of the structure. Even when visitors turn away, the awareness lingers, creating a disquieting tension between the tangible environment and the intangible presence within. The history of the silent watchtower contributes to its eerie reputation. Constructed as an observation point, it once served as a lookout for both protection and surveillance. The desert around it has witnessed countless storms, the passage of travelers, and the slow reclamation of nature over man-made structures. Objects inside the tower sometimes appear slightly moved when revisited, adding to the belief that the tower's former occupants, or the memories of their vigilance, persist in subtle ways. Furniture, equipment, and even scattered debris seem to carry echoes of the past, creating an atmosphere charged with history and mystery. For those who spend extended time at the tower, the experiences deepen. Figures glimpsed in windows, the sound of climbing footsteps, and fleeting shadows create a narrative of presence that is never aggressive but persistently aware. Visitors describe the sensation of standing under silent scrutiny, as if the tower itself evaluates their every movement. The interplay of structure, environment, and residual energy produces a cinematic quality where perception shifts between reality and something beyond, leaving a lasting impression long after departure. Silent Watchtower endures as more than a relic of the past. It is a sentinel over the desert, a monument to vigilance and memory, and a space where the echoes of history mingle with unexplained phenomena. Every broken step, every creaking plank, and every fleeting silhouette contributes to a story of observation and persistence. Visitors leave with an awareness of something watching, something patient, and something that continues to exist in the quiet expanse of the desert, making the Silent Watchtower an unforgettable encounter with history and the unseen. Phantom Radar Base sits isolated in the heart of a vast desert, a relic of technology and secrecy. Its radar domes rise unevenly, some partially destroyed, their skeletal frames silhouetted against the endless horizon. The desert sun casts long shadows over cracked tarmac, and the wind carries a scent of sand, metal, and dust. By day, the base appears abandoned, still, and silent, yet its presence feels heavy, as if it holds memories of operations long ended. At night, the base transforms. Strange lights appear across the horizon, hovering in the desert haze, with colors that seem impossible under natural conditions. Red, green, and sometimes blue glows drift slowly above the structures, reflecting faintly in the metal surfaces. Observers report the lights shifting unpredictably, moving in patterns that suggest intelligence or purpose. The sensation is disorienting and mesmerizing, a reminder that the desert can hide more than just emptiness. Figures are sometimes seen near the base. They move deliberately, walking across the tarmac or along hallways that have long since fallen silent. When approached, these figures vanish, leaving only the echo of movement or the faint impression of presence. Witnesses describe a sense of being watched, as if the base itself is aware of their every step, responding subtly to observation. Each encounter reinforces the idea that Phantom Radar Base is more than a collection of abandoned structures. The radar domes themselves are imposing. Some are intact, their metal surfaces gleaming faintly under moonlight, while others are fractured, exposing cables and mechanisms frozen in time. Within and beneath these domes, corridors and control rooms hold the residual energy of operations long ceased. Electrical systems hum faintly, sometimes flickering without cause, producing lights and shadows that dance across walls. Visitors report feeling drawn to certain areas, guided by unseen influence toward locations where phenomena are most pronounced. The desert amplifies the mysterious qualities of the base. Wind moves through gaps in the structures, carrying faint echoes of sound that resemble human voices or radio signals. Footsteps seem to reverberate unnaturally across open spaces, and distant metallic creaks add depth to the atmosphere. Guests describe the sensation of being both observed and guided, as if the base communicates silently through its environment. Every sound and shadow contributes to an immersive experience, where perception and reality blur. Where perception and reality blur. Where perception and reality blur. Inside the base, corridors stretch in long, narrow lines. Control panels stand as silent witnesses to the past, some with dials frozen mid-rotation, others flickering with inexplicable light. Figures have been reported walking past these areas, appearing fully formed, then vanishing when attention is focused. The effect is disorienting yet captivating, creating tension without aggression. Visitors cannot touch the figures, cannot follow them, yet feel a strong sense of presence. Radar signals, both audible and visual, add to the atmosphere. Guests sometimes detect faint, rhythmic pulses that echo through control rooms, paired with soft, shifting lights that play across surfaces. The phenomenon is unpredictable, never lasting long enough for clear interpretation. It produces a sense of continuity, as though the base still functions in ways unseen, maintaining operations that exist outside normal observation. The surrounding desert plays a critical role in shaping the Base's perception. Mist can roll in suddenly, softening edges and creating optical illusions. Shadows stretch unnaturally along walls, and distant silhouettes appear just beyond the range of vision. Figures are sometimes glimpsed moving along ridges or near the radar domes, their outlines merging with the desert haze before vanishing completely. The interplay between desert base and light creates a cinematic tension that is both compelling and unnerving. Visitors report subtle anomalies in side rooms and corridors. Chairs may appear slightly displaced. Equipment shows signs of recent use, and temperature shifts are noticeable in localized areas. Nothing is overtly dangerous, yet the cumulative effect fosters a sense of continuous observation. The base seems to retain memory, preserving traces of activity and awareness from its operational past. Guests experience moments where the ordinary and the extraordinary intertwine seamlessly, creating lasting impressions of the environment's enigmatic nature. At night, the base becomes most active. Figures glide silently through corridors, lights hover and shift in patterns above the domes, and distant signals pulse through control rooms. The experience is immersive, heightening awareness of every sound, movement, and shadow. Observers report the sensation of walking alongside the echoes of history, witnessing phenomena that defy simple explanation. The desert wind, the radar domes, and the lingering presence of figures create, where the ordinary world feels suspended and the base exists in perpetual interaction with the unseen. By dawn, the desert light softens, shadows retreat, and the base returns to apparent stillness. Yet the memory of figures, lights, and signals endures in those who have experienced it. Phantom Radar Base remains patient, silent, and observant, a location where the desert technology and unseen forces converge. Visitors leave with lasting impressions of a place where history lingers in metal, sand, and light, and where the mysteries of the night continue to unfold, unseen yet profoundly felt. Dust Veil Outpost rests buried beneath layers of desert sand, a forgotten relic of a past where human determination once met the harshest elements. The wind sweeps across its desolate walls, carrying grains of sand that accumulate in corners, cracks, and hallways, as if the outpost itself is slowly being reclaimed by the desert. Visitors approach with caution, feeling an immediate shift in atmosphere, a presence that is subtle yet undeniable. The exterior of the outpost is a blend of crumbling concrete and rusting metal. Sand drifts over staircases, fills windows, and sweeps through broken doors. Sunlight reflects harshly off fractured surfaces, casting long shadows that twist and move with every shift of the wind. Even in the bright heat of day, the outpost carries a chill, an eerie contrast that hints at the unusual activity within. Inside, cold drafts move through rooms and corridors despite the summer sun outside. The air seems charged with something unseen, brushing across the skin like faint fingertips or a quiet warning. Some visitors report feeling followed as they move, a lingering awareness that their presence is noted, even in rooms that appear empty. Lights float across buildings, soft glows that shift unpredictably. They are often accompanied by whispers, voices that seem to drift just out of earshot. They are fragmented, unintelligible at times, carrying fragmented commands, names, or warnings from a long-forgotten era. These lights are often accompanied by whispers, voices that seem to drift just out of earshot. Corridors wind to the outpost in narrow, labyrinthine passages. Footsteps echo on sandy floors, yet when followed, no source can be found. Doors open with no cause, swinging gently on rusted hinges. Shadows twist along walls and ceilings, forming shapes that vanish when observed directly. Every sound, every movement, creates a sensation that Dust Veil Outpost is alive in subtle, insistent ways. Dormitories hold the weight of history. Rows of empty beds, metal frames twisted by time, are partially buried in sand. The air carries an almost imperceptible pressure, a sensation that someone is nearby. Cold drafts move across rooms, brushing past visitors, leaving goosebumps in their wake. Objects shift slightly without explanation, as if unseen hands rearrange them in preparation for something that no longer exists. Training areas outside are equally unsettling. Sand has covered the ground, leaving only hints of walls, obstacles, and posts. The wind carries sounds of momentum, marching, running, commands that vanish the moment the observer listens carefully. Shadows move across open spaces in ways that defy natural explanation, creating the impression of activity frozen in time, yet continuously replayed by the outpost itself. The command center offers another layer of mystery. Consoles remain buttons and levers covered in dust, but faint glows occasionally flicker across screens. Some visitors have reported seeing figures standing silently before the panels, only to vanish when approached. The atmosphere is dense with anticipation, an awareness that the outpost retains fragments of past operations, echoing them through sound, light, and perception. Dining halls and communal areas are quiet yet heavy with memory. Sand drifts over tables and benches. Footprints appear and fade. Faint voices carry through open doorways. Guests report feeling touched by unseen presences. Objects moving subtly as if nudged by something just beyond sight. Every corner seems to hold significance. Every shadow hints at lingering life that no longer occupies a physical plane. Even the simplest details demand attention. The sound of sand shifting on floors. The groan of rusted hinges. The flicker of a lighter. Each contributes to a pervasive tension. Visitors find themselves hyper-aware of the environment, noting every shift in temperature, movement, and sound. The outpost is immersive, surrounding those within it, with a sensory experience that blurs the line between the tangible and the spectral. Night intensifies every sensation. Moonlight filters through shattered windows, casting fractured patterns across walls and sand-laden floors. Lights appear to float more clearly in darkness, and whispers grow distinct, echoing across corridors and open areas. Footsteps follow, echo, and vanish, leaving observers uncertain whether what they experience is imagined or real. The outpost becomes a space where the ordinary rules of perception no longer fully apply. The surrounding desert amplifies the isolation. Shadows stretch along walls and across open areas, forming shapes that appear almost human. Every gust of wind, every shifting shadow, and every flickering light seems deliberate, a subtle interaction between the outpost and those who explore it. Visitors leave Dust Veil Outpost changed. Cold drafts in summer, floating lights, whispers that trail footsteps, and objects that move without cause remain etched in memory, leaving an awareness that the outpost is more than stone, metal, and sand. It is a vessel for echoes, a space where past activity continues to interact with the present, lingering just beyond full comprehension. Dust Veil Outpost endures as a place of observation, memory, and subtle activity. Sand drifts across floors and hallways. Whispers persist, carrying fragments of voices from decades ago. Footsteps echo without source. Shadows twist along walls. And every observer senses that the outpost watches in return. Even after visitors depart, Dust Veil Outpost remains. The desert reclaims its edges. Winds sweep through corridors, and sand drifts across open spaces. Yet within, lights may still float, whispers may still follow, and cold drafts continue to move through empty rooms. Dust Veil Outpost waits silently for the next explorer to step across its threshold, offering an encounter with a place where memory, perception, and presence converge into a hauntingly unforgettable experience. Nightfall Depot sits deep in a remote valley, a relic of a past built for conflict. Its concrete walls, rusting doors, and weathered structures are remnants of a time when munitions and supplies were stored within its confines. Now, the depot lies silent, surrounded by overgrown paths and the occasional whisper wind through broken fences. The isolation is profound, and visitors often feel as though the valley itself is holding its breath, preserving the echoes of history and the tension of a place long abandoned. At dusk, the depot transforms. Shadows lengthen along walls and floors. The setting sun casts sharp angles, illuminating rusted metal and cracked concrete, emphasizing their age and abandonment. Explorers walking through the site often describe a heightened awareness, as though every step and sound is magnified, The quiet carries a weight of anticipation. Night brings the most intense experiences. Visitors have reported hearing sounds that defy explanation, from distant explosions to faint gunfire. That echoes across the empty compound. These phenomena contribute to a sense that the depot is not just abandoned, but alive in memory and energy, replaying fragments of the past in a subtle, unnerving manner. Shadows are a constant presence within Nightfall Depot. They flit along walls and across floors, sometimes following the path of explorers, and sometimes appearing in peripheral vision only to vanish when directly observed. The movement is unpredictable, creating an atmosphere of quiet tension. Even in the absence of light, darkness seems to gather and shift, emphasizing the weight of emptiness while hinting at unseen presences. The architecture of the depot enhances the sense of disorientation. Storage rooms open into one another. Yet the absence of life turns those same features into instruments of suspense, while remaining cautious of the uncanny experiences that accompany their movements. As they delve deeper into the depot, the atmosphere thickens with an unsettling energy. Every creaking door, every groaning beam, serves as a reminder that they are not alone, as they realize that they are trapped in this labyrinthine world. The surrounding environment amplifies the depot's mysterious nature. The wind sweeps through the compound, carrying faint metallic rattles or shifting debris that can be mistaken for footsteps. The combination of natural acoustics in the depot structures creates an immersive soundscape, where perception is constantly tested and ordinary expectations of space and movement are challenged. Visitors report an eerie interplay between light and shadow. Moonlight filtering through broken windows and gaps in walls casts long, unpredictable patterns across floors and surfaces. Rusted metal surfaces reflect faint glimmers that shift with each movement, enhancing the impression of activity even in emptiness. The subtle changes in illumination make familiar areas appear alien. The experience is intensified by the occasional unexplained sound or flicker in the darkness. The depot's history seems to permeate every corner. Rooms once filled with crates of munitions now hold echoes of action, tension, and preparation. Visitors describe moments when the air feels charged, as if memories of past activity linger in the atmosphere. Explosions and gunfire, heard without cause, seem like remnants of exercises or emergencies replaying in the present. The sense of time becomes fluid, and the depot is experienced not only as a physical space, but as a vessel of events that remain partially accessible to those who enter. Even outside the main buildings, Nightfall Depot maintains its enigmatic quality. Overgrown paths and fences create areas where movement is hidden, and shadows from nearby ridges stretch and shift unpredictably. The wind carries sounds and scents that evoke the depot's history, and the combination of desolation and subtle activity keeps visitors alert. Each glance across the compound reveals new textures, forms, and possibilities, reinforcing the sense that the depot is a place where reality and memory intersect. The experience of exploring Nightfall Depot is both immersive and disorienting. Every corridor, room, and shadow contributes to a narrative that unfolds in perception rather than words. Footsteps, noises, and shifting light create a layered reality that challenges assumptions and heightens awareness. Visitors often emerge with the impression of having walked through a living memory, a place where history is tangible, yet elusive. Despite its isolation, the depot draws attention to its presence. Sound movements, subtle or dramatic, command notice, yet resist explanation. Shadows flicker along walls, gunfire echoes without source, and the empty halls seem to watch and respond to each visitor. The effect is immersive, compelling attention while maintaining a quiet tension, making Nightfall Depot a location of both mystery and historical resonance. As night deepens, the depot continues its subtle performance. Shadows twist and stretch, distant echoes repeat and fade, and the air feels alive with memory. The buildings, the valley, and the ambient sounds combine to create a cinematic environment, where the boundary between past and present, seen and unseen, is continuously blurred. Visitors leave carrying impressions of motion, sound, and perception that linger, a reminder that the depot is more than an abandoned military site. Nightfall Depot stands as a testament to history, isolation, and the persistence of memory. Shadows flit along walls, explosions echo in emptiness, and corridors hold the weight of long-past activity. Every element contributes to an experience that is immersive, cinematic, and deeply atmospheric. Visitors depart with lasting impressions of a place where the ordinary and the mysterious coexist, where perception is tested, and where history continues to resonate long after the final footsteps fade. Ember Hill Base lies deep in the heart of the desert, a place where heat and isolation combine to create an eerie, almost otherworldly atmosphere. The structures are worn, concrete walls cracked, and metal frameworks rusted, yet there's a persistent sense that the base is far from abandoned. Visitors often describe a strange glow over the base, a subtle shimmer that moves across the hangars and barracks, giving the impression of activity where there should be none. Some report seeing soldiers marching in perfect formation, their movements deliberate and precise, yet they fade into the sand as quickly as they appear. These apparitions are never threatening, but their presence is undeniable, leaving witnesses both awed and unsettled. Doors and windows throughout the base are known to open and close without cause. The sound of hinges creaking or glass rattling carries across empty corridors, echoing in a way that suggests deliberate movement. Visitors have stepped into rooms to find them altered, as though someone or something has been rearranging the space in silence. The effect is subtle, a shifting of objects, yet it leaves a strong impression that the base itself is alive with memories and echoes of the past. The barracks are particularly unsettling. Long rows of empty beds and lockers hint at the life that once filled these spaces. Shadows appear to flicker across walls, sometimes stretching across the floors as if cast by unseen figures moving through the rooms. Occasionally, a visitor will hear the faint rhythm of boots on concrete, following the cadence of a long-gone patrol. The sound stops when attention focuses directly on it, adding to disorientation and the sense that the base observes those who enter. Outside, the desert is vast and open, yet it seems contained by the presence of Ember Hill Base. Sand drifts swirl in the wind, and the landscape appears to move subtly underfoot. Visitors report hearing faint radio chatter, static-laden and fragmented, drifting from nowhere in particular. At night, the glow intensifies, bathing the base in an unearthly light that highlights the sharp angles of barracks, watchtowers, and hangars. It is a glow that hints at life without revealing it, creating an atmosphere both beautiful and unnerving. The Base's history contributes to its spectral activity. Once a strategic outpost, it served as a hub of military operations, training, and patrols. The stories of soldiers who lived and worked here have become entwined with the very structure of the base. Footsteps, marching formations, and the sense of disciplined presence all seem to linger in the architecture itself. Even after decades of abandonment, the base retains an energy that draws visitors into the echo of past routines and vigilance. Exploring the hangars, one notices the interplay of light and shadow, often producing the illusion of movement. Objects left behind appear subtly displaced when revisited, and the emptiness of the space enhances the perception of activity. Lights flicker inexplicably, sometimes revealing the shape of a soldier or the edge of a crate where none should be. The desert around Ember Hill Base amplifies the isolation, heightening the tension, and making even small anomalies feel significant. At night, the base transforms into a place of profound stillness punctuated by the unexpected. The soft crunch of sand beneath invisible feet, the distant rattle of a shuttered window, and the occasional echo of a command or drill combine to create an immersive experience. Observers feel the presence of those who once inhabited the base, disciplined spirits, moving with purpose, entirely silent except for the echoes of memory. For those who linger, the line between past and present becomes blurred. The glow over the desert, the marching formations that fade into the sands, and the inexplicable movements inside the buildings all contribute to a sense of timelessness. Visitors leave with the impression that Ember Hill Base is not merely a relic of human activity, but a place where memory, history, and the unseen converge. The base endures, silent yet watchful, a desert sentinel preserving the echoes of lives once lived within its walls. Ember Hill Base remains a haunting destination, a place where observation and memory persist long after the last human departed. Every creaking hinge, every shifting shadow, and every glowing light carries the weight of history. Visitors encounter not only the remnants of military precision, but also a lingering presence that makes the base more than abandoned. It is a place where the desert and the past merge, where footsteps march unseen, and where the glow of the sands hints at secrets just beyond perception, ensuring that Ember Hill Base continues to capture the imagination of all who venture into its enigmatic expanse. Silent Plains camp rests quietly between towering mesas, surrounded by endless stretches of arid land. The camp appears unremarkable at first glance, rows of wooden structures and metal cabins sitting in orderly alignment. Yet the stillness carries an underlying tension, as if the land itself remembers moments long past and refuses to let them go entirely. Visitors to the camp often report a strange sensation upon arrival. The air is heavier here, carrying subtle vibrations that seem to emanate from the ground and the surrounding mesas. Shadows stretch unnaturally across pathways and open spaces, and the wind whistles through gaps in roofs and walls, producing sounds that resemble voices. Every footstep seems amplified, echoing against the still desert terrain. Abandoned roads wind to the camp and beyond, cutting through sandy plains that stretch between mesas. Figures have been reported walking along these roads, moving deliberately yet silently. When approached, they vanish, leaving behind only the faint impression of movement. Witnesses describe a feeling of being observed, as if unseen eyes track their progress across the empty grounds, leaving a lasting impression of unease and curiosity. Radios scattered throughout the camp sometimes crackle to life without human intervention. Ghostly voices whisper through static, carrying fragments of conversation, names, and commands from times long gone. The sounds are fleeting, disappearing the moment one tries to focus on them, yet they leave a profound sense of presence. Guests describe the phenomenon as both unsettling and mesmerizing, drawing attention to corners and corridors where memory seems most concentrated. A sense of presence lingers, as if something is watching from the shadows. The structures themselves contribute to the camp's eerie atmosphere. Metal roofs creak with the wind, and interior spaces feel charged with residual energy. Objects appear slightly displaced, chairs angled differently, or equipment showing subtle signs of use. Despite the absence of life, every detail adds to the perception that the camp exists in two layers of time: the present and the echoes of those who once lived and worked here. Evening deepens a mystery. Shadows stretch long and merge with the contours of mesas, creating shapes that shift and dissolve in the twilight. Figures are occasionally glimpsed near cabins or along the main paths, moving with a deliberate rhythm. Their presence is never threatening, yet the knowledge that they exist beyond ordinary perception fosters tension and heightened awareness. Observers often feel a pull toward particular areas, guided by some unseen influence that emphasizes the camp's most active locations. The pull is unseen, yet palpable, as if some unseen force is guiding the observers toward the heart of the mystery. The desert wind carries additional elements of the unexplained. Soft whistling between the mesas sounds like distant footsteps or hushed conversations. Faint vibrations accompany the breeze, reinforcing the sensation that the camp itself is aware of every motion. Guests find themselves attuned to subtle cues, noticing movements, sounds, and shifts in temperature that suggest the environment responds to tension and presence. Each encounter deepens a connection between observer and landscape. Abandoned roads amplify these experiences. The open stretches allow shadows and light to play in ways that distort perception. Figures seen along these paths may appear close one moment, then vanish the next, their movement precise and deliberate. Observers report a heightened sense of timing and rhythm, as if the land and its unseen inhabitants maintain a synchronized awareness. The experience is immersive, blending history, memory, and environmental cues into a continuous narrative that unfolds in real time. Inside cabins, subtle phenomena continue. Doors sometimes shift slightly, lights flicker without cause. and faint sounds echo through empty rooms. Guests describe moments where ordinary objects appear to carry memory, where footsteps and whispers blend seamlessly with wind and light. The sensation is cumulative, layering unease with fascination, and creating a compelling atmosphere for those who explore the camp after dark. The mesas themselves seem to watch. Their shadows stretch across the desert floor, merging with the camp as structures, and their towering presence creates a sense of isolation and observation. Figures that appear along roads or near cabins often move in relation to these natural sentinels, disappearing into shadowed recesses or blending with the contours of the land. The interaction between the landscape and the campa as residual energy creates a cinematic tension, both grounding and disorienting at once. As night deepens, the radios crackle more insistently, lights shift faintly across cabins, and shadows move with subtle precision. The experience is immersive, compelling observers to acknowledge the layers of memory embedded in both the camp and the surrounding desert. Every sound, movement, and flicker of light contributes to a narrative that is at once historical and immediate, connecting the present to moments long past. By dawn, the desert light softens, and the camp returns to its quiet stillness. Roads appear empty. Cabins settle back into silence, and the mesas stand watch without motion. Yet the impressions of figures, voices, and subtle movements remain, vivid in memory. Silent Plains Camp endures, a place where history, isolation, and unexplained phenomena converge, leaving those who visit with the sense of having glimpsed something beyond the ordinary, a lingering connection to a space alive with unseen presence and unspoken stories. Ironclad Bunker lies deep beneath the earth, a network of concrete tunnels and steel-reinforced chambers carved into the rock. Its purpose is long faded from memory, but the architecture speaks of careful planning and relentless engineering. The air is thick with cool dampness, carrying a metallic tang that hints at decades of abandonment. Every step echoes sharply against the walls, magnifying the sense of isolation and the weight of subterranean silence. Tunnels twist and turn in a labyrinthine pattern, seemingly endless. Narrow corridors open into wider chambers, some empty and still, others littered with the remnants of machinery long forsaken. Visitors describe a sense of vertigo as passageways bend and slope, leading them deeper into the darkness. The further one travels, the more pronounced the feeling that unseen eyes follow every movement. Lights appear from nowhere. Small glimmers flicker along walls or ceilings, casting long, shifting shadows that seem almost alive. These flashes are brief, elusive, and unpredictable. Observers often see shapes or figures in their periphery, yet when attention is directed toward them, they vanish. The effect is disorienting, creating an atmosphere where reality seems to bend with each turn of the tunnel. Footsteps echo in total darkness. Visitors frequently report hearing someone walking just behind them, the sound close enough to provoke a reaction. Yet when they stop and listen, the tunnels remain empty. The phenomenon repeats, sometimes following them for minutes or hours, reinforcing the impression that the bunker itself is aware of their presence. The chambers are heavy with history. Papers, manuals, and metal crates are scattered across floors. Guests often feel compelled to examine objects, only to notice them subtly shifted or displaced when attention returns elsewhere. These small disturbances contribute to the feeling that the bunker is alive in some unseen way. The deeper levels are colder, damp, and darker. Shadows gather in corners and recesses, forming shapes that the mind instinctively interprets as figures. The combination of echoing footsteps, occasional flashes of light, and shifting objects creates a tension that is almost palpable. Visitors must move cautiously, aware that the environment is as much participant in the experience as the human observers. Alarms occasionally sound, sharp and startling, yet no source can be located. Their sudden resonance fills the corridors and chambers, bouncing off walls in a way that amplifies the perception of presence. The noises often coincide with other phenomena, such as flickering lights or distant echoes, creating an intricate interplay of sensory experiences that challenge understanding. Some chambers are lined with ventilation shafts and stairwells, which carry sounds unpredictably. A whisper might emerge from a narrow duct. Footsteps might fall from above, and yet no one can be seen. The acoustics of the bunker amplify and distort these noises, giving the impression that activity is all around, though nothing is visible. The architecture itself seems designed to intensify awareness and heighten perception. Corridors and chambers twist in a maze that challenges even the most attentive visitor. Each turn is a potential encounter with shifting shadows, sudden noises, or fleeting lights. The further one moves, the more the senses are drawn into the environment, attuned to the subtlest changes. The bunker becomes a living puzzle, a place where anticipation and uncertainty dominate every step. Control rooms are haunting in their precision. Dials, buttons, and screens retain the impression of human activity long since ceased. Visitors often report seeing faint silhouettes standing near consoles, observing or moving with purpose. These apparitions disappear upon closer inspection, leaving only the echo of movement and the lingering sense of observation. Equipment storage areas are equally mysterious. Rows of lockers, crates, and tools are covered in dust. Yet objects occasionally appear displaced. Drawers may be slightly open, boxes tilted, and instruments shifted. These changes are subtle but enough to reinforce a perception that the bunker responds to the presence of visitors, acknowledging them without visible interaction. Even in the narrowest passages, the bunker commands attention. Every footstep is amplified, every breath is noticeable, and shadows twist across walls in patterns that are almost rhythmic. The structure seems to contain and magnify the awareness of those within, creating an immersive experience that is both disorienting and compelling. The further one descends, the more pronounced the sensation of time stretching. Minutes feel like hours as shadows shift and lights flicker. Footsteps echo repeatedly, sometimes in synchronization with distant alarms or subtle shifts in the environment. The experience creates a blend of suspense and curiosity, drawing visitors into an exploration of both the physical space and the unseen forces that seem to inhabit it. Visitors leave ironclad bunker with memories that persist long after exiting. The cold, echoing corridors, the flashes of light, the footsteps in darkness, and the subtle movements of objects create an impression of presence that cannot be ignored. The bunker is more than concrete and steel. It is a repository of energy, memory, and subtle observation, interacting with those who enter in ways that defy explanation. Even after departure, the tunnels remain. Lights may still flicker, shadows continue to twist along walls, and the faint echo of footsteps may linger in the mind. Ironclad bunker endures as a place where history, perception, and the unexplained converge. It is a structure that observes, responds, and persists, offering a haunting and unforgettable experience to anyone who ventures into its depths. Red Sands Outpost rises in the desert like a lone sentinel, a cluster of weathered buildings surrounded by endless dunes. By day, the base appears abandoned, its structures faded under the relentless sun and wind. Rusted vehicles sit motionless near the barracks, and empty watchtowers cast long shadows across the sand. The air carries a dry, metallic tang, and even in daylight, a sense of unease permeates the site, as though the desert itself remembers every footstep that has crossed its boundaries. Night transforms the outpost entirely. The red sands seem to glow under moonlight, and strange lights hover above the base, casting flickering reflections across walls and windows. Observers describe the lights as unnatural, moving slowly or darting across the desert without any visible source. Their glow bathes the outpost in an eerie ambience, highlighting the contours of barracks, watchtowers, and rusted fences, while casting long, shifting shadows. The desert feels alive, attentive, and strangely responsive to human presence. Ghostly figures are reported near the barracks, appearing as fleeting silhouettes that vanish when approached. They seem to linger at the edges of perception, glimpsed from a distance or in peripheral vision, always just out of reach. Some explorers describe a sensation of being observed, of eyes following them from darkened corners or through broken windows. The figures move with purpose yet leave no traces on the sand or within the buildings, creating an atmosphere of mystery and subtle tension. Within the barracks, the environment amplifies the sense of unease. Dusty floors, empty bunks, and peeling paint serve as a reminder of the base's history, while shadows seem to shift independently of light sources, as if the outpost itself is interacting with visitors. The air feels charged, carrying faint sound that echo through the hallways. A distant clang, a shuffle of footsteps, a whisper of movement that cannot be traced. The surrounding desert contributes to the sense of isolation. Dunes rise and fall in waves, and wind sweeps across the base, amplifying sound and distorting perception. At night, the landscape becomes a vast, open canvas where imagination and reality intersect. The hovering red lights seem to respond to movement, sometimes appearing closer as explorers traverse the grounds, only to retreat as they approach. The interplay of light, shadow, and perception creates a cinematic, immersive experience that draws observers deeper into the outpost's mysteries. Red Sands Outpost is a place where history and the unknown converge. Its structures speak of human occupation, of discipline and routine. Yet the phenomena observed suggest a presence beyond the physical. Ghostly figures, shifting shadows, and moving objects all contribute to an environment that challenges perception and heightens awareness. Visitors often feel caught between curiosity and caution, compelled to explore, while remaining conscious of the unexplained activity around them. Sounds in the outpost are particularly disorienting. The wind carries distant echoes that mimic footsteps or the shuffle of movement within empty rooms. Doors creak, hinges groan, and faint metallic clatters reverberate through the barracks. Each step taken within the outpost is both a physical act and a test of perception, where ordinary explanations fail to fully account for what is experienced. The red lights above the dunes continue their silent dance through the night. They illuminate the desert in the outpost in fleeting bursts, casting unnatural hues on sand, metal, and concrete. Observers report seeing patterns and movements that defy logic, lights appearing in lines, clusters, or hovering silently above certain areas of the base. The effect is mesmerizing and disorienting, creating a sense of both wonder and unease. Explorers describe a heightened sensitivity to the environment. Shadows appear to shift independently, corners seem darker than they should, and glimpses of figures are often accompanied by subtle temperature changes. The air itself feels alive, as a holding memory or energy that has lingered long after human activity ceased. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena produces an experience that is immersive, suspenseful, and uniquely cinematic. Even during periods of quiet, the outpost maintains an atmosphere of vigilance. The desert amplifies sound, the barracks capture shadows, and the red lights continue to appear and vanish unpredictably. The environment seems to encourage exploration while simultaneously evoking caution, a duality that heightens a sense of mystery. Visitors often leave with a lasting impression of a place where the ordinary rules of perception are suspended, and every glance and sound carry significance. Red Sands Outpost endures as a location of isolation, enigma, and subtle phenomena. Its structures, the surrounding desert, and the strange activity observed converge to create a space where history, memory, and perception intersect. Ghostly figures, red hovering lights, and moving objects all contribute to an immersive narrative that engages curiosity and suspense. Every step, every sound, every shift of shadow adds to the cinematic experience of exploring a place that exists on the edge of the known and the unexplained. By the time visitors leave the base, the red sands and flickering lights linger in memory. Shadows along the barracks, movements in the sand, and objects shifted without cause form impressions that remain long after departure. Red Sands Outpost is more than a forgotten desert base. It is a site where human perception meets the unknown, an environment that challenges the senses and leaves a profound impression on those who dare to explore its mysteries. Desert Phantom Range stretches across the arid landscape like a vast, silent expanse, its terrain marked by abandoned roads, skeletal structures, and the remnants of a past designed for testing and exploration. By day, the sun scorches the sand, casting long shadows from rusted equipment and skeletal hangars. Yet despite the emptiness, there is a peculiar energy here, a sense that the range is not truly uninhabited. Explorers venturing along its cracked roads often report the subtle presence of movement just beyond sight. Shadows shift at the edge of vision, following silently as visitors navigate the desolate paths. The wind carries faint sounds, a whisper across the sand, the distant groan of metal structures, and the occasional echo of footsteps that do not belong to anyone present. These occurrences are brief and elusive, yet they leave a lasting impression that the desert itself is attentive to those who wander through it. As night falls, the range transforms into an otherworldly scene. Stars glimmer above in the vast desert sky, and the emptiness becomes a canvas for strange, streaking lights that dart across the horizon, sometimes hovering, other times accelerating in patterns no conventional craft could replicate. Witnesses describe the experience as mesmerizing and disorienting, a blend of beauty and unease that fills the darkness with unseen life. The abandoned roads themselves seem to have a memory. Tires leave no tracks, yet travelers feel a subtle guidance along the old paths. As if unseen entities walk beside them, invisible companions marking each turn and junction. Occasionally, objects along the roadside appear shifted when revisited. A small crate slides slightly, hinting that something passes through the landscape with silent intent. The desert here is quiet, yet alive, maintaining a pulse that is imperceptible but deeply felt. Structures scattered across the range reveal glimpses of a human past. Observation towers, storage bunkers, and hangars remain intact in form but empty in function. Windows are shattered or dusty. Doors hang open on creaking hinges, and shadows play across walls in ways that seem unnatural. Some visitors have described seeing figures in these buildings, fleeting silhouettes that vanish when approached. The sense of observation is unmistakable. Echoes of the past appear in unexpected ways. Faint, rhythmic sounds reminiscent of marching or drilling sometimes carry across the desert, as if a phantom military presence continues its routines long after the base was abandoned. Radios left in bunkers occasionally crackle with static or fragmented transmissions, fragments of voices and commands that fade as quickly as they appear. These auditory phenomena create an immersive atmosphere, blurring the line between reality and memory, making every step to the range feel both intimate and uncanny. Explorers have reported peculiar interactions with the environment. Lights on equipment flicker despite being unpowered. Shadows stretch or bend at impossible angles. And the air itself seems to vibrate with tension. The desert amplifies these sensations, isolating visitors from familiar reference points, and intensifying the feeling of being watched. Even the smallest movement, a shifting of sand or a clatter of loose metal, can seem monumental in the otherwise silent expanse. The range's reputation is further amplified by the stories of those who have lingered after sunset. Figures moving along the horizon, shadows that mirror actions perfectly, and lights that appear and vanish without warning. Shadows that mirror actions perfectly, lights that appear and vanish without warning, contribute to the sense that the desert is a living stage for phenomena beyond explanation, leaving visitors with a heightened awareness of the unseen. These experiences are rarely frightening in a violent sense, but they are profoundly disorienting, leaving visitors with a heightened awareness of the unseen. Desert Phantom Range remains a place where observation, memory, and perception converge. Every abandoned road, every rusted structure, and every shifting shadow contributes to a narrative that is both historical and enigmatic. The streaking lights, the phantom footsteps, and the presence of figures beyond sight create an experience that is cinematic in scale, evoking both awe and caution. Visitors depart with a sense that the range continues to exist independently, a silent yet persistent witness to every footstep, every gaze, and every story carried into its expanse. The desert does not forget, and Desert Phantom Range endures. As a landscape of the past and the unexplained coexist, a haunting yet captivating testament to the mysteries hidden beneath the sands. Ghostlight Depot stands as a testament to industry long past, a sprawling complex of warehouses and storage buildings. The structures are weathered and worn, paint peeling from steel walls, and windows clouded with years of dust and grime. By day, the depot appears quiet and empty, yet visitors sense a persistent presence, as if the buildings themselves remember every footstep, every sound, and every moment from decades before. Inside the warehouses, the atmosphere shifts. Some say lights float mysteriously through the air, moving slowly above crates of machinery, casting faint glows on surrounding walls. Lights appear and vanish without explanation, flickering in rhythm with no known source. Observers describe an uncanny sensation, a feeling that the space is alive with unseen movement and awareness, as though the buildings themselves are communicating silently. Figures are sometimes glimpsed along long corridors. They move deliberately, appearing in shadowed doorways or between stacks of crates, only to vanish the moment they are approached. Guests often feel eyes upon them, though the spaces are empty. The sensation is subtle yet pervasive, an awareness of something just beyond perception. Footsteps echo through concrete floors, faint but distinct, and the air carries a scent of oil, dust, and something intangible, a presence that lingers in every corner. The depot's architecture contributes to its mysterious energy. Steel beams and high ceilings create spaces where sound carries unnaturally, amplifying whispers, distant creaks, and the occasional metallic clang. Visitors report being drawn toward particular areas, guided by sensations they cannot fully explain, as if the depot itself directs attention to points of residual energy. Machinery, though long inactive, sometimes hums or vibrates, producing subtle pulses of noise that suggest activity where none exists. At night, the environment becomes more pronounced. Shadows stretch and merge, creating shapes that shift in peripheral vision. The floating lights appear more frequently, drifting silently above shelving and along corridors. Figures may be glimpsed briefly at the far end of a hallway, then disappear when noticed. The combination of sound, shadow, and illumination produces an immersive atmosphere where perception and reality intertwine, and every movement is amplified by the depot's echoing halls. Visitors report hearing faint alarms that sound without cause, echoing across empty buildings. The tones are intermittent, often accompanied by whispers that seem to come from behind walls or through ventilation shafts. These sounds do not follow any discernible pattern, yet they leave a lasting impression, reinforcing the feeling that the depot is a place where the past lingers in subtle, persistent ways. Footsteps, sometimes distant and sometimes close, add to the tension, creating a sense of being accompanied by unseen observers who move just beyond reach. The layout of Ghostlight Depot enhances the mysterious experiences. Long rows of shelving and stored containers create labyrinthine pathways, perfect for glimpses of figures disappearing around corners. Crates stacked high and metal doors slightly ajar produce shifting shadows that seem to move independently. Visitors often find themselves pausing, straining to perceive subtle movements, aware that the environment responds to their presence in ways that cannot be measured or explained. Subtle anomalies further heighten the atmosphere. Objects may be found slightly displaced, a box angled differently, or a door left ajar despite being closed previously. These changes are never threatening, but they suggest the environment carries memory, preserving traces of prior activity. Guests describe moments when ordinary objects seem imbued with significance, drawing attention to spaces where the unexplained phenomena are most prominent. Whispered voices drift through open spaces, barely audible yet distinct enough to provoke awareness. Footsteps echo on concrete floors, sometimes above, sometimes below, defying logic or spatial expectation. Occasional metallic clanks resonate in large halls, adding rhythm and texture to the auditory landscape. All of these elements work together to create a cinematic tension that is immersive without relying on visual spectacle, focusing instead on perception, sound, and anticipation. As night deepens, the Dipota as phenomena intensify. Lights float more clearly, figures move more frequently, and distant alarms punctuate the otherwise silent spaces. Visitors describe a growing awareness of being watched, yet never threatened. The combination of visual and auditory anomalies fosters an atmosphere of suspense and curiosity, compelling observers to engage with the environment in ways that feel both historical and immediate. By morning, the depot returns to its quiet, deserted state. The floating lights vanish, figures are no longer visible, and the echo of footsteps fades into silence. Yet the memory of the night remains vivid in those who experienced it. Ghostlight Depot endures as a place where architecture, history, and unexplained phenomena intersect, leaving visitors with a sense of having walked among shadows, whispers, and lights that exist just beyond ordinary perception. Lingering long after the day has begun, Sand Dune Base rests in the heart of the desert, partially buried by shifting sands that seem to move with a mind of their own. From a distance, the structure appears abandoned, yet there is a subtle sense of activity, a rhythm that hints at something unseen beneath the dunes. The heat of the sun reflects off metal surfaces, but within the base, shadows gather and move in ways that defy natural explanation. Visitors approaching the base notice the sand behaving strangely. Footprints sometimes vanish shortly after being made, while new depressions appear as if someone had just passed. The wind carries a scent of metal and earth, blending with the arid heat to create an atmosphere that is both oppressive and hypnotic. Every step into the base heightens a sense that the desert itself is watching, guiding attention toward things unseen. Inside, hangars stretch wide and empty, their ceilings high and shadowed. Occasionally, lights flicker within, appearing briefly before extinguishing. Visitors report glimpses of shapes moving among the aircraft and machinery, silhouettes that vanish when approached. These fleeting images leave a lasting impression, the mind struggling to distinguish between reality and imagination. Corridors wind through the complex, narrow and lined with metallic walls. Sounds echo unnaturally, footsteps amplifying and bouncing through tunnels. Some explorers hear the faint hum of engines or the creak of machinery, though everything remains still. The combination of light, shadow, and sound creates a sense of life where none should exist. Outside, phantom vehicles appear. Trucks, jeeps, and other desert transports emerge in the sand, moving along invisible tracks. They glide silently, leaving no footprints, and vanish just as suddenly, as if the base itself conjures them for the observer alone. Storage areas hold remnants of past operations. Equipment left behind appears untouched for decades, yet subtle changes suggest movement that is never directly witnessed. Every detail reinforces the impression that the base responds to those within it, acknowledging presence without revealing its source. Command centers remain partially intact. Consoles and control panels are covered in dust, buttons frozen in place, yet faint glows sometimes flicker across screens. Some visitors describe seeing figures standing near the panels, monitoring or moving with purpose, vanishing when attention is drawn. The rooms exude a silent energy, a persistence of action that transcends the absence of personnel. Even open courtyards are unnerving. Shadows stretch across sand and concrete, forming shapes that seem almost human. The wind carries faint echoes of voices, distant footsteps, or the hum of engines that are not present. The sensory experience is immersive, drawing visitors into a narrative written by the base itself, one that cannot be fully explained or controlled. Lights in hangars, and often unpredictable. They appear as soft glows or sharp flashes, illuminating walls and machinery before disappearing. These illuminations reveal fleeting glimpses of shapes, sometimes resembling figures moving among equipment, other times manifesting as abstract patterns. The unpredictability heightens tension, keeping observers in a constant state of anticipation. Some areas of the base are partially collapsed or buried in sand. Visitors must navigate uneven surfaces, sand drifts, and debris while remaining alert to sounds and movements. The desert continues to reclaim the structure, yet within, The presence of unseen forces give the impression that the base is still active, maintaining a subtle pulse that mirrors its former life. Footsteps often echo without source. Guests describe hearing steps in corridors, stairwells, or hangars, following them closely yet leaving no trace. Sometimes the echoes synchronize with flickering lights or shifting objects, creating the sense that the base is guiding the experience intentionally. Every movement becomes a dialogue between the observer and the environment, each step answered by response or illusion. The surrounding desert enhances the base-y-esque mystery, or revealing hidden corners, merging natural and supernatural phenomena into a seamless experience. Visitors leave Sand Dune Base with an acute awareness of its lingering presence. The strange shifting sands, phantom vehicles, floating lights, and moving shadows remain vivid in memory. Even after departure, the base continues to influence perception, lingering in thought and imagination. The experience is not just visual or auditory, but immersive, engaging the senses and the mind in ways that persist long after leaving the desert. Sand Dune Base endures as a place where history, memory, and perception converge. The shifting sands obscure details. Lights continue to appear without source. And shadows drift silently across walls and dunes. Phantom vehicles may glide along invisible paths. Echoes of footsteps may follow, and objects may subtly move in response to the presence of visitors. The base is a reminder of human endeavor and abandonment, of structures designed to endure in the harshest conditions, and yet susceptible to phenomena beyond explanation. It offers a haunting, unforgettable experience to those who venture within, a glimpse into a space where the boundaries between the physical and the unseen blur. Even as the desert reclaims its edges, shadows twist along walls and dunes. Lights flicker in long-abandoned hangars, and the soft hum of phantom activity continues. It is a place where memory, presence, and perception merge into a hauntingly vivid encounter, leaving a lasting impression on anyone who dares to explore. During the day, the base appears abandoned, silent except for the occasional gust of wind rattling loose panels and fencing. The sense of isolation is immediate, and every step across the compound carries the weight of history and the unspoken tension of a place built to observe, defend, and endure. As darkness falls, the base transforms. Observation towers, once empty, seem to pulse with activity. Lights flicker along stairwells and platforms, shadows moving in patterns that defy explanation. Explorers ascending the base at night often report seeing figures climbing stairs, moving with deliberate purpose, only to vanish when approached. These fleeting glimpses create a sense of presence that is both unsettling and compelling, as if the base itself remembers and enacts moments from its past. Inside the halls, the atmosphere grows denser. Long corridors stretch in geometric precision, lined with doors and panels that appear in use for decades. Whispers echo through these empty passages, indistinct yet insistent, carrying across concrete and metal. The sounds are subtle, sometimes almost imperceptible, yet their presence is undeniable. Visitors describe moments when a whisper seems to come from directly behind, only to dissipate into silence, leaving an echo that lingers in the mind long after the ears perceive nothing. The architecture of Iron Watch Base contributes to its enigmatic qualities. Stairwells twist sharply, corridors intersect at unusual angles, and platforms rise above the landscape, offering views that stretch for miles. Each structural element serves a practical purpose in its history as an observation post. Yet in abandonment, they become instruments of suspense. Shadows stretch unnaturally along walls and floors, cast by minimal light sources or the flickering of distant lamps, creating the impression of movement where none exists. The base's towers seem particularly active during the night. Figures appear at platforms, often viewed from a distance, climbing stairs or leaning against railings. Observers report the figures vanishing when approached, leaving no trace upon the steps or floors. This phenomenon is heightened by the sheer verticality of the towers, which accentuate the contrast between emptiness and perceived activity. Every ascent or descent of a stairwell feels charged, as though the base itself responds to the presence of visitors. Sounds play a central role in the experience of Iron Watch Base. Steps echo through stairwells that have long been silent. Distant metallic clangs resonate from corridors, and the faint hum of unseen machinery seems to persist beneath the surface. Explorers often find themselves straining to locate the source, only to realize that the noises originate from no discernible point, reinforcing the sense of mystery. The concrete and steel construction acting as both conduit and amplifier. The outdoor environment surrounding the base enhances its spectral qualities. Winds sweep across ridges, carrying distant echoes that blend seamlessly with the natural sounds of the terrain. Shadows stretch across the perimeter, shifting as the moon rises and dips, creating patterns that appear deliberate yet are entirely natural. The combination of architectural complexity, topographical isolation, and environmental elements produces a cinematic and immersive experience where perception and reality continually interact. That time feels altered within the base. In corridors, towers seem to elongate. Visual phenomena, or moving lights, making the boundary between memory difficult to distinguish. Acutely aware of their senses, between what is seen, heard. The towers also provide a unique vantage point for observing the surrounding landscape. From these heights, the desert or forest stretches the horizon, offering views that are both beautiful and disorienting. At night, the darkness accentuates depth and distance, while shifting shadows on the ridge below create the impression of movement across the terrain. The interplay of light, shadow, and perspective adds another layer to the base's enigmatic atmosphere, reinforcing the feeling that Iron Watch Base is a place of observation and reflection on multiple levels. Even when the base appears completely silent, a subtle tension remains. Shadows cling to corners, stairwells seem to hold invisible weight, and corridors feel charged with history. Visitors often leave with a lasting impression of a location where the ordinary rules of perception are suspended, and where history and mystery coexist in every hallway, stairwell, and platform. Iron Watch Base endures as a monument to observation, isolation, and subtle phenomena. Figures that climb stairs and vanish, whispers that echo through empty halls, and shadows that shift independently. The experience challenges perception while remaining safe and suitable for exploration, leaving visitors with an impression of a place where the past lingers and the boundaries between seen and unseen are constantly blurred. As the first light of dawn touches the ridges, the towers appear empty once again. Yet the memory of activity lingers to the echoes of footsteps, the faint whispers, and the shifting shadows remain in the minds of those who witness them. Iron Watch Base is more than an abandoned military post. It is a site of quiet mystery, an environment where perception is tested, and where the cinematic presence of the unseen shapes every moment spent within its walls. Desert Phantom Range stretches across the arid landscape like a vast, silent expanse, its terrain marked by abandoned roads, skeletal structures, and the remnants of a past designed for testing and exploration. By day, the sun scorches the sand, casting long shadows from rusted equipment and skeletal hangars. Yet despite the emptiness, there's a peculiar energy here, a sense that the range is not truly uninhabited. Explorers venturing along its cracked roads often report the subtle presence of movement just. Shadows shift at the edge of vision, following silently as visitors navigate the desolate paths. The wind carries faint sounds, a whisper across the sand, the distant groan of metal structures, and the occasional echo of footsteps that do not belong to anyone present. These occurrences are brief and elusive, yet they leave a lasting impression that the desert itself is attentive to those who wander through it. As night falls, the range transforms into an otherworldly scene. Stars glimmer above in the vast desert sky, and the emptiness becomes a canvas for strange, streaking lights that dart across the horizon. These lights move with unnatural precision, sometimes hovering, other times accelerating in patterns no conventional craft could replicate. Witnesses describe the experience as mesmerizing and disorienting. a blend of beauty and unease that fills the darkness with unseen life. The abandoned roads themselves seem to have a memory. Tires leave no tracks, yet travelers feel a subtle guidance along the old paths, as if unseen entities walk beside them, invisible companions marking each turn and junction. Occasionally, objects along the roadside appear shifted when revisited. A small crate slides slightly, hinting that something passes through the landscape with silent intent. The desert here is quiet, yet alive, maintaining a pulse that is imperceptible but deeply felt. Structures scattered across the range reveal glimpses of a human past. Observation towers, storage bunkers, and hangars remain intact in form but empty in function. Windows are shattered or dusty. Doors hang open on creaking hinges, and shadows play across walls in ways that seem unnatural. Some visitors have described seeing figures in these buildings, fleeting silhouettes that vanish when approached. The shapes are rarely detailed, yet the sense of observation is unmistakable. Echoes of the past appear in unexpected ways. Faint, rhythmic sounds reminiscent of marching or drilling sometimes carry across the desert, as if a phantom military presence continues its routines long after the base was abandoned. Radios left in bunkers occasionally crackle with static or fragmented transmissions, fragments of voices and commands that fade as quickly as they appear. These auditory phenomena create an immersive atmosphere, blurring the line between reality and memory, making every step to the range feel both intimate and uncanny. Explorers have reported peculiar interactions with the environment. Lights on equipment flicker despite being unpowered. Shadows stretch or bend at impossible angles. The air itself seems to vibrate with tension. The desert amplifies these sensations, isolating visitors from familiar reference points, intensifying the feeling of being watched. Even the smallest movement, a shifting of sand or a clatter of loose metal, can seem monumental in the otherwise silent expanse. The range's reputation is further amplified by the stories of those who have lingered after sunset. Figures moving along the horizon, shadows that mirror actions perfectly, and lights that appear and vanish without warning, contribute to the sense that the desert is a living stage for phenomena beyond explanation. These experiences are rarely frightening in a violent sense, but they are profoundly disorienting, leaving visitors with a heightened awareness of the unseen. Desert Phantom Range remains a place where observation, memory, and perception converge. Every abandoned road, every rusted structure, and every shifting shadow contributes to a narrative that is both historical and enigmatic. The streaking lights, the phantom footsteps, and the presence of figures beyond sight create an experience that is cinematic in scale, evoking both awe and caution. Visitors depart with the sense that the range continues to exist independently, a silent yet persistent witness to every footstep, every gaze, and every story carried into its expanse. The desert does not forget, and Desert Phantom Range endures as a landscape where the past and the unexplained coexist, a haunting yet captivating testament to the mysteries hidden beneath the sands. Desert Phantom Range stretches endlessly across the arid landscape, a vast expanse of cracked roads, rusted structures, and remnants of time, when the desert was alive with experimentation and movement. By day, the sun scorches the sand, casting sharp shadows from skeletal hangars and abandoned observation towers. Yet beneath this desolate surface, there is a sense that the range is far from lifeless, a quiet pulse that seems to follow every visitor who dares to explore its roads. Travelers quickly notice that the desert here does not behave as one would expect. Shadows seem to move independently, shifting at the edge of vision, following silently along abandoned roads. Footsteps echo where none should exist, fleeting and distant, disappearing when one turns to investigate. The wind carries whispers through the sand, subtle and indistinct, as if the desert itself is murmuring secrets of events long past. Each sound and movement creates a tension that is impossible to ignore, an unspoken reminder that the range is never truly empty. As night falls, Desert Phantom Range transforms. The sky above becomes a canvas for strange, fleeting lights that streak and hover in patterns no conventional aircraft could replicate. They glide silently across the horizon, accelerating or disappearing without warning. Witnesses describe the experience as mesmerizing yet disorienting, the desert illuminated in a glow that hints at hidden presences. These lights move with intent, giving the impression of a desert alive with forces unseen, each streak a ghostly signature of activity that defies explanation. The roads themselves seem to carry memory. Travelers report that even when no one is present, they feel watched, guided, or observed. Objects along the roadside shift mysteriously. A crate moves a few inches, as if unseen hands are maintaining a silent vigilance over the deserted paths. These subtle interactions create the impression that the desert itself is conscious, its vast emptiness only a surface layer hiding the persistent energy of what once was. The scattered buildings tell a story of human presence long abandoned. Observation towers, bunkers, and hangars stand like sentinels. Windows broken or obscured by dust, doors hanging on creaking hinges. Shadows flicker across walls, elongated and irregular, giving the impression of figures moving through rooms that should be empty. Visitors often glimpse these fleeting shapes, barely visible, vanishing when approached, leaving behind only the impression of eyes watching silently from within the structures. Sounds echo unnaturally across the open desert. Faint footfalls mimic marching patterns, the distant rhythm of boots across concrete and sand. Radios left in bunkers sometimes crackle with static and fragmented transmissions, fleeting voices issuing commands or giving instructions that disappear before they can be understood. These phenomena heighten the sense of history and presence, blurring the line between past and present, leaving explorers with a feeling that the desert is a stage for unseen actors moving according to rituals long forgotten. Interactions with the environment are subtle but unnerving. Lights flicker in unpowered equipment, and the air itself can seem charged with tension. Even the softest movement of sand or rustling of metal seems amplified in the desert as emptiness. Visitors describe feeling followed, the brush of unseen eyes, the sense that every step is observed and recorded by the lingering memory of the range. Many who stay after sunset describe experiences that defy conventional explanation. Figures appear on distant roads, shadows mirror their movements, and lights pulse in and out along the horizon. The sensations are rarely threatening, but they are deeply disorienting, creating a heightened awareness of every sound, every shift in the terrain, every whisper carried on the wind. Desert Phantom Range becomes not only a place to witness, but a place to feel the weight of unseen observation and lingering presence. The range is a living monument to the past. Every road, building, and shadow contributes to a story of experimentation, human endeavor, and mystery. Light streaking across the sky, phantom footsteps echoing over sand, and shadowed figures glimpsed in the corners of vision form an experience that is both cinematic and haunting. The desert here does not forget, and every visitor leaves with the impression that the range continues to exist in parallel, a quiet, persistent witness to events long gone. Desert Phantom Range endures as a place where history, memory, and the unexplained converge. Its abandoned roads and skeletal structures are more than relics. They are conduits for the lingering energy of the past, observed and preserved in the quiet hum of the desert. Shadows follow. Lights streak. Sounds echo. The desert remains alive in ways both subtle and profound, offering each visitor a glimpse into a reality that exists just beyond the edge of perception, a haunting yet mesmerizing testament to the mysteries hidden in the sands. Crimson Mesa Camp rises from the rugged desert like a forgotten sentinel. The wind sweeps across the plateau, carrying with it a dry, dusty whisper that seems to echo the memories of those who once walked these grounds. The barracks stand in rigid lines, empty now, yet their presence is undeniable. Windows, dark and unwelcoming, catch the faint glow of moonlight, reflecting in a way that makes the structures appear almost alive. Occasionally, visitors speak of lights flickering along the edges of the buildings, appearing and disappearing as though unseen hands were testing the boundaries between the living and the dead. Silence dominates the camp during daylight. But when the sun dips below the horizon, an unsettling stillness descends. The air grows heavy, carrying the faint scent of burnt wood and old canvas, memories of past drills and exercises that seem to cling stubbornly to the earth itself. Shadows stretch unnaturally, folding over themselves, and the wind and sound like a chorus of distant voices, if one listens long enough. Some who have ventured to Crimson Mesa Camp at night report seeing figures moving in the darkness. Soldiers dressed in uniforms from a time long past, their faces obscured by shadow, march in perfect formation across the mesa. Their movements are deliberate, almost ritualistic, and they vanish when approached, leaving no trace except for the echo of their footsteps in the sand. The sight is so vivid that it feels as though the camp itself is playing out a scene that has been repeated countless times. The training grounds tell their own story. Old obstacle courses, once filled with the shouts of recruits, lie cracked and worn by years of sun and wind. The targets on the shooting range are tattered, but some say the sound of gunfire can still be heard at night, faint and distant, echoing across the mesa as if the past refuses to stay buried. Visitors often describe a sensation of being watched, a prickling on the back of the neck, as if the unseen eyes of soldiers long gone are observing every step. Even the mess hall carries its own spectral energy. Long rows of tables sit empty, yet echoes of clattering dishes and hushed conversations seem to linger in the air. Occasionally, the faint smell of cooked meals drifts across the space, and those sensitive to the atmosphere feel the brush of phantom hands on their shoulders. It is as though the camp is a living archive of memories, preserving moments of ordinary life and intense discipline alike. The watchtowers, once vital to security, remain silent sentinels. Visitors often report seeing lights moving within the towers at night, though the stairwells are empty and the observation decks deserted. It is difficult to explain, yet the phenomenon is consistent, as if some unseen force continues to patrol the heights, maintaining a vigilance that time cannot erase. The barracks themselves have stories embedded in their walls. Doors open and close of their own accord, and cold drafts sweep through rooms that should be warm. Some report hearing footsteps pacing back and forth, accompanied by soft murmurs that carry a sense of urgency and purpose. The sounds do not frighten, yet they unsettle, hinting at the disciplined routines that once defined life at Crimson Mesa Camp. Even the surrounding desert seems to interact with the camp. The mesa drops steeply on all sides, creating natural walls that isolate it from the world below. Storms roll across the landscape with sudden ferocity, lightning striking in bursts that illuminate the camp in harsh flashes. It is during these moments that the camp feels most alive, the atmosphere charged with tension, as if the spirits of the past respond to the fury of nature above them. Visitors often speak of the sense of history weighing on their shoulders. Every step across the cracked concrete and shifting sand carries with it the whispers of those who trained, who lived, and who perhaps never truly left. Some stay only long enough to glimpse the phantom soldiers, while others spend hours wandering, drawn by curiosity, compelled by an invisible force that insists on telling the story. The phenomenon is not violent, nor does it seek to harm. Frozen in place on this lonely mesa, of the echoes that linger long after the final retreat has sounded. The horizon stretches endlessly, a barren expanse interrupted only by the skeletal remains of a once bustling military installation. Silent Horizon Base sits atop a lonely ridge, abandoned for decades, yet hums with a presence that cannot be explained. Visitors who wander the desolate compound at night speak of figures moving along the asphalt. Shadows trace the contours of buildings. The wind carries whispers through the corridors, brushing past the ears of explorers like the remnants of long-forgotten conversations. Despite the decay and the silence, there is a rhythm to the base. Footsteps echo where no one walks. Doors swing gently as if caught by an unseen hand. And the old radar dishes seem to pulse with life, scanning the night sky in slow, deliberate sweeps. Those who have lingered near the tallest towers report a sensation of being observed, a weight pressing down as though history itself refuses to let go of the space it once claimed. The main road that winds through the base is cracked and overgrown, yet at night it seems to shimmer with movement. Figures appear along the edges, sometimes walking in formation, other times pausing to stare into darkness before fading away. The concrete bunkers and control rooms hold an eerie stillness, yet every so often a light flickers inside, moving along the walls as though someone is pacing in silent contemplation. Some explorers describe hearing whispered conversations, fragments of commands, and faint laughter carried on the wind. The sounds are elusive, coming from all directions yet anchored to no visible source. There is a strange allure to the base, a pull that draws visitors back again and again, despite the creeping unease that settles over anyone who spends too long in its presence. At sunrise, Silent Horizon Base transforms once more. The strange lights dim, the shadows retreat, and the whispers vanish with the first rays of light. Photographs taken here often capture anomalies as shapes in the fog, streaks of light, and figures barely visible in the distancia, clues that the base has stories yet untold. The radar towers, though rusted and weathered, seem almost sentinel-like, standing watch over the landscape. When clouds roll in and the wind sweeps across a ridge, the structures creak and groan as if murmuring in response to the elements. Explorers report a sense of anticipation, as though the base itself is aware of their presence, measuring their courage and curiosity. Some of the most unnerving encounters occur along the perimeter roads. At first glance, they seem empty, but a careful observer may catch a shadow slipping between broken guardrails or moving across rooftops. These figures are rarely aggressive, but their sudden appearances are enough to unsettle even the most experienced visitors. The road stretches endlessly, looping around the base, and those who travel it at night often find themselves disoriented, unsure which turn leads to safety or deeper into the labyrinth of the abandoned site. Inside the barracks, peeling paint and shattered windows frame an environment that feels frozen in time. Yet the feeling of abandonment is deceptive. Objects sometimes shift slightly between visits, and the faintest echoes of footsteps follow intruders as they navigate the hallways. Some who stayed until nightfall describe lights flickering across the ceilings and walls, moving in patterns too deliberate to be random. The atmosphere is thick with tension and the weight of memory, a quiet reminder of the base's operational past and the secrets it still harbors. Visitors often speak of an unspoken connection to the site, a sense that Silent Horizon Base is more than the sum of its empty buildings and broken infrastructure. There is a presence here, persistent but subtle, that hints at events and lives long gone. The lights, the shadows, the whispers, they all create a tapestry of unexplained phenomena that challenges logic and reason. Every corner, every corridor, every rooftop holds a potential for discovery, a moment that blurs the line between the known and the unknown. For those willing to explore the expanse, the base offers a journey into history, mystery, and the uncharted territory of the human imagination. The experience is immersive and unsettling, yet mesmerizing. Silent Horizon Base does not shout or demand attention. It waits, patient and enduring, inviting those brave enough to witness its hidden narratives. Beneath the endless stretch of sun-scorched desert lies a structure few dare to enter. The Desert Phantom Bunker is an underground facility shrouded in shadow and mystery, its existence whispered about by explorers and locals alike. Time has etched its presence into the earth, and the heavy steel doors guard a labyrinth of corridors that have not felt human warmth in decades. The air inside is cold and carries a weight that seems almost alive, pressing against anyone who ventures beyond the entrance. As you descend the narrow steps into the darkness, the walls close in with a quiet, oppressive tension. The faint hum of unseen machinery seems to pulse through the floors and walls, a rhythm, bouncing through empty halls as if the building itself is listening. Visitors often describe an unsettling sensation, as if they are never truly alone. And each shadow could be watching, waiting to vanish before the eye can catch it. Some who explored the bunker report hearing alarms ring out without cause, a shrill sound that pierces the silence and leaves the air trembling. Others speak of footsteps in distant corridors, heavy and deliberate, yet when they turn, the space is always empty. The sensation is immediate and real, a collision between perception and disbelief. These experiences are not fleeting whispers. They linger, leaving a residue of unease that follows you long after leaving the facility. The bunker itself is a maze of cold concrete and steel, with walls scarred by age and neglect. Rusted control panels flicker dimly in the darkness, as if attempting to awaken after decades of dormancy. Hallways stretch into the blackness, lined with doors that conceal unknown chambers. Each doorway invites curiosity and hesitation, the mind imagining what could have been conducted within these subterranean walls. It is a place built for secrecy, where the echoes of the past cling to every surface and tell stories without words. Visitors often describe ghostly figures that appear along the corridors, silhouettes that linger for moments before dissolving into shadow. They move silently, with an elegance that seems almost intentional, vanishing when approached. Some say these apparitions are echoes of those who once walked these halls, caught in a permanent loop of duty or confinement. Others suggest they are manifestations of the bunker itself, memories trapped within the concrete and steel. The truth remains elusive, and perhaps it is the very uncertainty that fuels the legend of the Desert Phantom Bunker. Descending deeper, the temperature drops further, the cold seeping through layers of clothing and settling into the bones. The cold seeping through layers of clothing and settling into the bones. The darkness thickens, broken only by the occasional flicker of failing lights or the reflection of a dusty lens. In these moments, the facility feels less like an abandoned site and more like a living organism, breathing slowly beneath the desert surface. The silence is deafening, punctuated only by the unpredictable sounds that suggest movement in unseen corners. Explorers report a strange shift in perception as they navigate the bunker. Time seems to stretch and compress, and the layout itself can become disorienting. Corridors that seemed straightforward moments ago twist and elongate. Doors that were once open now refuse entry. It is as if the bunker resists observation, reshaping itself around those who seek to understand it. Every step becomes a balance between curiosity and caution, an internal dialogue about how far one should venture into the unknown. At certain points, the facility seems to come alive with activity. Shadows flicker across walls, and a low mechanical hum rises into a crescendo, only to fade as abruptly as it began. Alarms blare without reason. Footsteps echo in empty rooms, and the air grows dense with the weight of unseen presence. Even seasoned explorers report a shiver that runs down the spine, a primal acknowledgement that something beyond the ordinary occupies these subterranean halls. Despite the chilling atmosphere, there is an undeniable fascination that draws people back. The Desert Phantom Bunker is more than an abandoned structure. It is a window into a forgotten world, a place where history and mystery intertwine. Each corner and corridor holds fragments of stories left untold, waiting for brave or the curious to witness them. The sensations of being watched, of footsteps following and of lights flickering without source, all contribute to an experience that cannot be fully explained or rationalized. Leaving the bunker, the desert sun feels almost intrusive in its brightness. The weight of the underground world lingers, a reminder of the cold corridors and silent figures hidden beneath the surface. Visitors speak of returning home changed, carrying a sense of the unseen with them, a memory of shadows that move just beyond the edge of vision. The Desert Phantom Bunker is a place that challenges perception, a site with a boundary between the living and the spectral blurs, leaving a haunting impression long after the descent ends. It is a site that exists both in reality and imagination, where echoes of the past intertwine with the present, and every visit becomes a journey into the unknown. The Desert Phantom Bunker is not merely an abandoned facility. It is a testament to human curiosity, resilience, and the enduring allure of what lies hidden beneath the surface. It is a place that asks the visitor to wonder, to question, and to face the mysteries that dwell in the darkness. Last Watch Outpost sits isolated in the heart of the desert, a collection of abandoned barracks, rusted vehicles, and skeletal watchtowers, a feeling that the outpost is far from empty. That something persists within its boundaries even decades after it was officially abandoned. Explorers who venture to Last Watch Outpost quickly notice that the desert behaves strangely here. Shadows twist unnaturally across the sand, and the air carries faint, dissonant sounds that seem to follow visitors along the crumbling roads. Footsteps echo over pavement where no one walks. The subtle rhythm of movement that vanishes when one turns to confront it. Lights flicker across the horizon, sometimes hovering above the ruins, moving in impossible patterns that defy logic. Illuminating the outpost in brief, eerie bursts before fading into darkness. At night, the outpost transforms into a place of surreal activity. The floating lights intensify, tracing arcs over the desert, moving in sequences that suggest an unseen intelligence. Witnesses describe the lights as sharp and deliberate, as though mapping the ground below, responding to the presence of intruders, or perhaps replaying events from the past. It is in these hours that the history of the outpost seems most alive, the echoes of its former occupants appearing to move once more among the ruins. Visitors have reported seeing figures dressed in military uniforms, soldiers, and officers who seem frozen in moments of routine. They march in formation, inspect vehicles long rusted and decayed, or stand silently at attention on the cracked tarmac. Vehicles appear in motion where no engines exist, tires spinning and dust rising in shapes that dissolve before eyes can fully comprehend. The desert itself seems to breathe around these phenomena, amplifying the sensation that the past is not entirely gone. Sounds are a constant presence at Last Watch Outpost. Radios left in the barracks occasionally crackle with fragmented transmissions, static interspersed with commands, orders, and distant voices. Footsteps echo along corridors, halls, and walkways long abandoned. Doors creak open and close of their own accord, metal hinges groaning under unseen pressure. Even the whisper of wind through the outpost carries an unnatural resonance, sometimes forming patterns that suggest movement where none is visible. Every sound contributes to a sense of living history, a recording of events that refuses to be silenced. The environment itself reacts to those who linger too long. Objects shift subtly. Crates lean at angles they did not hold before, chairs and tables repositioned slightly overnight, and small items are inexplicably moved. Objects shift subtly. Crates lean at angles they did not hold before, chairs and tables repositioned slightly overnight, and small items are inexplicably moved. Explorers describe the sensation of being watched in the corners of rooms or across open spaces, a pressure in the air that is both physical and psychological, a reminder that the outpost retains a consciousness of its own. The outpost also carries stories of those who never returned. Explorers vanish during night excursions, leaving behind only whispered accounts of their experiences, and the strange lights that seem to accompany them. Some witnesses report seeing shadows approach companions, moments before they disappear entirely, leaving the desert to reclaim them silently. The legend of these vanishings amplifies the haunted reputation of Last Watch Outpost, creating a tense anticipation for every new visitor who dares to tread its grounds. Despite the danger, the outpost holds an eerie allure. Its combination of historical intrigue, mysterious lights, and unexplained phenomena draws adventurers, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts alike. Each visitor carries away a unique impression of the place, a mix of awe, fear, and fascination. The desert becomes a stage, the ruins a theater, and every shadow and flickering light a player in a narrative that unfolds beyond comprehension. Last Watch Outpost is more than a relic of military history. It is a living testament to the persistence of memory, the echoes of the past, and the mysteries that refuse to fade. The lights, the figures, the shifting objects, and the whispering wind all combine to create an atmosphere that is both cinematic and haunting. Visitors leave with stories that defy explanation, impressions of a base that exists simultaneously in the present and in memory, a place where history and the supernatural converge over endless sands. The desert here remains watchful. Shadows continue to follow, lights trace invisible paths, and whispers carry across empty barracks and roads. Last Watch Outpost endures as a place where the unseen lingers, where the past walks alongside the present, and where every visitor is reminded that some stories are never fully told, some presences never truly gone, and some places remain eternally haunted. We have now explored 25 haunted abandoned military bases in New Mexico. Each base is alive with shadows, whispers, and mysterious lights. The desert seems to remember every visitor. The wind carries secrets of experiments, lost soldiers, and unexplained phenomena. These bases are more than empty buildings. They are windows into the past, filled with memory, fear, and restless spirits. Next time you drive through the New Mexico desert at night, remember, the lights may not be natural, the buildings may not be empty, and some bases may never let you leave. Thank you for walking through these haunted bases with me tonight. Stay cautious, stay curious, and may the desert watch over you as you explore only the shadows you are ready to see.